Welcome to the August 25th meeting of the Planning Commission, Placer County Planning Commission. Please join me in the flag salute.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Okay, Kathy, roll call, please.
Mr. Akuri is absent. Mr. Sevison? Mr. Gray?
Here.
Mr. Moss?
Here.
Mr. Johnson?
Here.
Mr. Nader?
Here.
Mr. Rakucci?
Here. Next item is a report from the Planning Director. EJ, you have something for us today?
Good morning.
Morning.
EJ Avaldi with the Planning Services Division. I do have a couple things. So our Board of Supervisors met this last Tuesday. They had quite a light agenda, so I don't have anything to report on that. However, they are on September 13th. They're going to be considering the recommendation on the Martis Valley West Parcel Specific Plan. That's going to be held at the North Tahoe Event Center in Kings Beach. As far as upcoming Planning Commission hearings, September 8th, we're going to cancel that meeting. Hopefully that will give you a little break from the marathon that we've been on lately. So September 8th is canceled. September 22nd, we will have a meeting. It will be here in Auburn. We're hoping to have an update on the Sunset Area Plan and the Placer Ranch project. We also hope to have an overview of the emergency shelter zoning text amendment that's coming forward. Several extensions of time. There may be one or two other projects on there as well. Then as we get into October, we know we're going to have two meetings in October, our regularly scheduled meetings on October 13th and 27th. One of those will be in Tahoe. We're not sure yet. We're still waiting on some draft EIRs to be released for Tahoe projects, so that will dictate on when we have those draft EIR hearings up in Tahoe. So please keep those in mind. Some other projects in October at those meetings down on the West Slope, the Ovation Senior Living Project in Granite Bay. We hope that will be coming forward. There's also the White Hawk 1 and 2 subdivisions in Granite Bay that should be coming forward. So it continues to stay busy for your commission. Just a quick note, when we get to the consent items, staff will be requesting to pull off item B, which is a Wilson subdivision. We'll be asking you to continue that off calendar, and we can, I'll bring that up again when we get to the consent item. So something I don't get to do often, but I'm very excited to do, is I get to announce several new additions to the planning services team and some recent promotions. So to start off, I would like to first introduce Bianca Dinkler and Joey Scarborough. There are two new assistant planners, and I know there's some here, and they're going to get Bianca's over there, and there's Joey on the other side of the room. So anyway, Bianca and Joey combined have many years of public sector experience. One has worked for El Dorado County, the other Nevada County. With their skill sets, that's just going to add tremendous value to our team, and we're happy to have them on board. So some of you may also know Angel Green. Angel Green is returning to planning after several years working at the Air Pollution Control District. She's not only going to be our in-house air quality specialist, but will play a key role in the preparation of the county's climate action plan, as well as take the lead on large-scale development projects. I also get to announce that Jennifer Bias and Sherry Conway have been promoted to supervising planner. Jennifer continues to be an integral part of bringing the Placer County Conservation Plan to adoption, and Sherry, of course, is working on the Sunset Area Plan update. So with that gets me to the not so good news. Roy Schaefer, who's sitting in the front. So Roy has announced his retirement. This is obviously good news for Roy, so we're happy about that. He served the county for almost 14 years. Over the years, Roy has established some important relationships, bringing together both the community and project applicants. Roy's most notable work can be seen all over Granite Bay, especially along the Douglas Boulevard corridor. Roy has been one of the most dedicated employees, has one of the most strongest work ethics. I cannot talk today. Work ethics that I've seen, and there's not one time that I can remember Roy showing up, even a minute late to work in his 14 years, which is just unheard of. Even when he had a flat tire one day coming up to work, he still made it on time. So anyway, I would like to say a big thank you to Roy for your years of service to not only to the county and our staff, but also to the community. So with that, thank you to Roy. And lastly, I don't want to leave out County Council. County Council gets to extend their staff as well, so I'm going to have Karen introduce one of their new employees.
EJ, can I ask you a quick question?
You bet.
Last night there was a public meeting on the DeWitt plan, and will that eventually come before the Planning Commission, or how does that eventually get approved?
At this time, it hasn't. We have not been asked to hear it at the Planning Commission. Obviously, that's something that will get approved by the board. I can check to see if there's anything that would require it to be here, but we can certainly ask for them to come here as a if not an action, an information item to, bring you guys an update on that.
Because it's obviously a large project, over 200 or around 200 acres, and so it has a big impact on North Auburn. So I would think it would at least should come as an informational item for us.
Right, and if it turns out there's any entitlement that's required as part of that, obviously that would come to the Planning Commission. But even without that, we'll be happy to make the contact and get that to before your commission.
I can probably respond a little more to that as well.
Thank you.
What is proposed is an update of the master plan for the government center.
Right.
And what has been going on at this point has been the community outreach to ascertain or to understand from the community what they would like to see as potential uses within the government center. And that's what you're seeing going on right now. Going forward, it will require an EIR plus the update, the approval of the update. And that will make its way through the process. So as EJ said, there may be an opportunity for a workshop on that before it actually comes forward. But that's what you're seeing right now.
Yeah, because I think they're talking about next year to try to get the plan in place.
Yes, that's my understanding. That's at least their proposed timeline at this point.
Okay, thank you.
And with that, County Council has been recruiting, and we have hired 2 new attorneys to help us out with all the work that we've seen. And one of them is with me today, Michael Profont. It started just Monday, so we're bringing him in trial by fire. At least I didn't have him sit here. Michael will be working in the land use environmental area along with me. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Before we move on to the consent, I'd like to ask Roy, would you like to say something? I don't want to, come on, you're never lost for words.
Thanks. I'm not sure if a planner can get PTSD, but I think I might have it. So during the downturn, 2008, we were hiring people. We actually had too many. Now I'm glad to see what EJ mentioned. We really need staff. County Council needs staff as well. So it's actually happening. We're giving new young people the opportunity. Thanks.
Thank you, Roy. Thank you. Okay, next item on the agenda is a public comment. I'm sorry. Let's see. Yeah, public comments. Yeah, I'm sorry. I said consent was the next one, but public comment. Any item that a member of the public wishes to bring up that's not on today's agenda. Your name for the record, please. Thank you.
Veronica Blake. I'm here today on behalf of the Placer Community Foundation, a growing group of concerned citizens. So I wanted to take a moment to make sure that you were aware of the important issue around affordable and workforce housing. The median home price of Placer County is currently about $425,000, and according to the county's housing element, the lowest income families can afford housing at a price of about $84,000, and moderate income families can afford a home price of about $337,000. The rental vacancy rate in the area is less than 2%. We see this as a serious economic development issue. As an example, the North Auburn Market Commercial Study was commissioned by the Economic Development Department in 2007. And in that report, it identifies that a key challenge for economic growth is the lack of workforce housing for area employees. We know that when people have to spend more than 30% of their income on housing, they're not able to spend the rest of their money on other important things that drive our economic engine. There are numerous developments in various stages of planning, and though your current policy allows for different options for affordable housing, whether that be in lieu fees, dedication of land, building, or a combination of those things, our group believes that it's important for the county to set policies, incentives, and creative ways to help developers that would actually construct the units. We only have to look to the eastern part of the county to see where failure to do this can be way more expensive and much more of a challenge on the community. We've taken a look at several of the EIRs, past and present, and we're trying to make sense of what is happening. While we're still learning, it's surprising to see that so many of these EIRs have not addressed the affordable housing issue. For example, the Auburn-Bowman Community Plan EIR was completed in 1994, and at that time the report referenced that the impact on affordable housing as significant and unavoidable in the long term. Well, it's now 22 years later, and it's a huge issue, and this impact needs to be recognized as a significant impact for any project that contributes to the need for affordable housing. I'd also add that much of the multifamily zoned land in the Auburn area has been developed for single-family purposes. And then in the case of commercial projects, we see that the jobs housing balance discussion is just too simple and not really adequate to construct the workforce housing. So just in closing, my request to you is that when applicants are proposing projects to this commission, we would like you to ask them how their projects are contributing to the actual construction of the workforce and affordable housing in the community. It's a huge need, and we really need your partnership to make it happen. Thank you.
Anyone else in the audience on items not on today's agenda? Yes, ma'am, would you like to come up?
My name's Cheryl Berg, and this is in reference to the Timberline project, and I'm requesting that you.
Wait a second, ma'am.
You're not hearing me?
We're going to get to the consent item, and then we.
Oh, then I would bring it up.
And then we pull it. Yeah, if you want.
Then I'll raise my hand to ask you to move it to the discussion agenda. I'm asking that it be removed from the consent agenda.
You'll
Okay, I'll
get
do
the
it now.
chance. You'll get the chance right in a second now. Okay, but thank you so much. I'm sorry for the confusion there. Anyone else in the audience on items not on the agenda? Okay, then we'll move on to the consent. And we have 3 items on the consent, and they are Timberline, Wilson Subdivision, and Gruber Mountain Estates. It was Gruber?
Yeah.
Gruber. Okay, I'm sorry for that mispronunciation. Does anyone want to remove any items on that agenda? Okay, there's one, and we'll discuss it after any of the other items are removed for discussion.
Yeah, just to clarify, there's 5 items on the consent agenda.
But I didn't-
There's items A through E.
5 items, how come I only have 3? Oh, no, I see.
There's A, B, and C are extensions of time.
Yeah,
Item
then
B
there's,
is approving the action agenda, and then item
Planning
E
Commission
is
reappointment. Okay,
reappointment.
I didn't see those 2 little ones at the bottom there. Okay, so, and staff,
staff is requesting to pull item B, and we're just asking that you continue that to a open date so we can look at the correspondence that was received and respond to it accordingly.
Do we need a motion on that, Karen, or?
Yes, you do.
I make the motion that we pull item B to an open date.
For
Can I comment on this?
clarification, Commissioner Nader, was your motion to continue off calendar?
I'll continue off calendar. Yeah.
Okay, is there, okay,
I'd appreciate it if you just include the name of the project.
It's the Wilson subdivision project,
Thank you.
yeah, that's
item B.
B. Okay, roll call?
Mr. Akuri is absent. Mr. Sevison? Mr. Gray? Mr. Moss? Mr. Johnson?
Yes?
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Akuchi?
Yes, okay, item C is how do you pronounce that, Gruber?
Gruber.
Gruber, Mountain Estates. D is action item agenda for August 11th, and the Planning Commission to consider reappointing
Mr. Chair?
Commissioner Lee Nader to the Wastewater Advisory Committee.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
And so, is any of those items want to be pulled, or can we approve those in one motion? Okay, is there a motion then for those items?
For the consent agenda?
Yeah.
For C, D, and E?
Yeah, for the consent
Approve
item,
the consent agenda.
with the exception of Timberline. It's been pulled.
Timberline's been pulled?
Yeah, it will be pulled. So I had a person raise their hand, so it will be for further discussion. So we have a motion to approve those C, D, and E.
Okay, I second that.
Okay, roll call.
Mr. Curry is absent. Mr. Sevison? Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Moss? Yes. Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Rakucci?
Yes, okay, item A has been requested to be pulled by, and I'll have the lady speak first here since she raised her hand. And then to come up now and you can state your name and the reason that you're in favor of pulling it for further discussion.
Okay, my name's Cheryl Berg, and I'm representing 60 residents that I was able to talk with in my neighborhood or surrounding property of the Timberline, and we are requesting that you remove Timberline from the consent agenda and put it on the discussion agenda.
Yeah, it's been removed, so you have any other comments? We are,
No.
now's the time to discuss it. If you have any other.
Oh,
Mr. Chair, if removing it off consent, what we would suggest you do then is treat it as you would any other public hearing item,
Right.
with the staff presenting the project,
okay.
the applicant with any
Okay.
comments, and then take your public testimony.
Okay. We'll let staff make comments first, and then we'll open up to the public. Yeah.
I don't know where I am.
No.
I was under the impression that if one discussion, then we discuss it.
Well, the staff, I forgot about the staff, will make a presentation now. And then you can come right up after staff.
We have a timed item at 10:05, the Creekside Center. I suggest that we take this item that was pulled off the consent agenda and make it the last item on the agenda.
Okay, we have a comment by Commissioner that we should continue with our timed items first. 10:05.
If that is the wish of the commissioners, you're absolutely correct. You have your first timed item at 10:05. You can either finish up your consent count, well, it's not consent now, but you can finish up the Timberline from that portion of your agenda, or you can move on to your 10:05. I might suggest, I think there's probably more testimony in the other two.
Yeah, I would suggest moving forward with the consent item, as, you know, there'll be a lot of people who would have to wait around.
Okay.
You know, for Timberline.
And that's usually the way, that I've been done before, where you can do a vote on all the consent items, and anything that's been pulled, you discuss them then at that time. So go ahead, the staff member.
Just a moment. I have a conflict. I live next to the project, so I've got to recuse myself and leave the room. So,
Okay. Bye.
Bye. I'll be back later.
Okay, staff.
All right. Good morning, Commissioners. My name is Callie Kettinger-Cecil with the Planning Services Division. The project is an extension of time. The applicant is requesting a 2-year extension of time for a continuing care community here in North Auburn. I do have some slides prepared, but it is towards the end, so I'll flip through these real quick so we can get to the Timberline slides. All right. So, as I mentioned, the project is a continuing care retirement community here in North Auburn. The project was initially approved by the Board of Supervisors on August 9th, 2011. The project includes 858 residential units, which also includes a commercial center with 78 units. Entitlements for the project included a conditional use permit, a minor use permit, variances, and an exception to the noise ordinance, as well as a rezone and a zoning text amendment. The applicant has taken due diligence to move the project forward. The project was significantly delayed by obtaining their Section 404 permits from the Army Corps of Engineers. The project has received those permits and are now installing the required improvements. The project, however, is set to expire before the improvements can be completed, and the applicant needs to record the final map. By allowing the extension of time, this would allow the improvements to be completed and then would allow the final map to be recorded. The project applicants are here if you have any other questions, as well as the original project planner.
So the improvements are already underway?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of staff?
What's your question? Concerning why they're working on it now?
Oh, yeah. The construction is going on now?
The improvements are being installed, that's correct.
And
And they're asking for 2 years, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Oh, okay, I'll get back to you on the rest.
Okay.
I'm going to listen to this.
Any other questions? If not, is the applicant here?
Turn your microphone
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. My name is Gary Parker. I represent Western Care Construction, the applicant on the project, and Martin Harmon, the owner of the project. And I do have a brief presentation to bring you up to speed on where the project is, if you so desire. At this point, it is under construction, and I can go through quite a few points to bring you up to date exactly where we are, if that's what you'd like me to do.
What's the pleasure of the commission?
Well, I think, is it brief or is it going to be a lengthy presentation?
It's fairly brief.
Fairly brief? Fairly brief. That was a good way.
I've been working on the project for 4 years, so I can talk forever with regard to the project.
Okay, I think a question I was hearing earlier is it's already under construction, but you don't have the final map. So what's the relationship of the construction you're doing now and the final map?
Yeah, the phase one of the project is under construction, which includes the extension of Richardson Drive to the north from Bell Road and all the pertinent underground improvements that will be going in. The phase one project includes 25 single-family and duplex units and a 91-unit apartment project. And these are senior facilities. It's 55 and older for this project. And it's the first phase of a very large project that will ultimately have approximately 850 dwelling units, commercial, retail, and will provide for the extension of Richardson all the way through to the connection. So you'll have ultimately have a connection to Dry Creek with Richardson.
Okay, and so do you have to complete phase one in order to record the final map?
No, we do not.
So what's the trigger for the final map?
The trigger for the final map at this point in time, and we're working with the county, is to finalize our subdivision agreement and bond amounts so we can post bonds, and then also create a zone of benefit for the maintenance of the public facilities that we're installing with phase one. Okay. Those two items.
Okay. Thank you.
I have kind of interesting question here. Don't you normally get a recorded map before you start construction?
That is not the case.
Not the case?
No, it is not.
I would have thought that would have been the procedure, but it's not.
Some municipalities do require the map and plans to go together. Placer County does not require that. And we had anticipated starting construction earlier in the spring, and from an environmental standpoint, we had a nesting bird on the site, and until the fledglings left the nest, we couldn't start construction. Had we been able to, we might have been at the point where we would have our map done now, but it's just not the case.
The final map now, it covers the whole project.
The final map just covers phase one.
So what's happened with phase two?
We will be moving forward with phase two on engineering, and based on the reception of the phase one project to the market, it will be dependent on when we would actually start phase two. But we'd anticipate the earliest phase two would start would be spring of next year if the market is that strong.
The reason I was asking is if this isn't going to complete all the maps, the final maps, are we going to be back in 2 years to ask for continuance for?
No, once we
phases?
record the first final map, and based on the all of the improvements we're putting in, we will have continued extensions on the remainder of the tentative map. And that's per Subdivision Map Act.
Okay, thank you. Any questions of the applicant? Thank you. Okay.
And I'd be available for any more questions you might have later.
Now,
Thank you.
Now, ma'am, sorry for keep delaying you like this.
How many people?
How many people are going to be here to speak to this item? Can you raise a hand?
Most of our people work.
Okay, so you're, okay, fine, go ahead.
Again, my name's Cheryl Berg. And you all got the request.
Yeah, it was honored.
To continue. Our problem is this development was put in the middle of a residential area. And this development is going on. Originally, it was said 10 or if you needed it, 15 years to complete the whole thing. I don't know if any of you, if it was your home, if you would put a project, a construction project in your people's front yards for 10 to 15 years, and now they want 2 more, and then from what I heard him say, after phase 1, then phase 2 could get 2 more, and so the whole project is going to be way longer than was originally specified at the supervisors meeting. And I feel that people that make a plan this huge should know what they're doing. And they should know what kind of things are going to slow them up, or that should go in the program if they're that professional. And, you know, you might have to redo in the county plan, redo DeWitt as an insane asylum, because when you live, you used to have scenery, Sierras, sunrises, and you hear beep, 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 beep. Don't get tired of it because it's gone on for 3 months in our neighborhood. And it's going to go on and on and on and on. And I think maybe they need to make this project smaller so that it doesn't have to keep being continued because they can't handle what has to be taken up. Because it is super disruptive. I mean, basically, those of us who surround this property, our lives have totally changed. So everybody that approved this project and wanted it, they've totally, totally changed how we live. And I don't think very many people that approved the project would have wanted to change their lives, 100% ruined their sense of living like they've done to people that have surround this. Rossmore in Walnut Creek, they built Rossmore, but guess what? They built it out in the country. Then people built around it. They didn't put a huge project like this in the middle of a neighborhood. And I just ask that you don't extend it any longer. And just have them make it smaller so they can meet the time frame.
Okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anyone else in the audience on this item? Not to close the public hearing. Now, we're here not to discuss the size or scope of the project. We're here to discuss continuation or extension of time for the recording of the map. So, what's the pleasure of the or further comment?
Well, I guess, yeah, normally, I mean, we've already hashed this project over once, and the Board of Supervisors have, so it really wouldn't be appropriate for us to rehash it again, but I'm making the assumption that planning has taken a look at this project and there's no outstanding changes that have happened or performance problems with the project.
That's correct.
Okay. Thank you.
Good, Larry.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to just identify, it sounds like to me that it's the timing of the project right now and the phase it's in and the type of equipment that's being used currently that's causing the problem. It sounds like, at least from my perspective, that doing the underground work, the sewer, the water, the trenching and all that stuff is the one that's causing the backup beepers that's annoying. And hopefully that can move on and go away, and you'll have just the building of the buildings, which may not be so irritating to the neighbors. Am I missing this, or does that sound about right?
I mean, typically your initial infrastructure that goes in with any project is going to be the most, I guess, invasive, for lack of a better word, with surrounding property owners. So we do have the benefit of having ESD, DPW staff here to speak on, where they're at with construction. I think the project proponent gave a good, a good overview of where they're at right now. But if you want further detail about that, we do have them available.
Well, maybe the applicant can come forward and just give us an idea of what is anticipated. So maybe the anxiety will go down a little bit with the neighbors if they know that this is short-lived.
Thank you. One of the things we've done with our contractor, which is Tyker Construction, and they're one of the better contractors in the region, is we have them on full overtime so that they can get this finished as quickly as possible. And by doing that, we probably cut the construction time period by 6 weeks. We anticipate we'd be paving at the end of October as compared to be paving into December. So we're doing everything we can to accelerate construction and minimize the disturbance for the area.
Are you starting at an unusual hour, or are you starting at more traditional times?
We're starting in compliance with the county requirements on time.
Okay. I guess that's all I have for now.
Ask him.
What time is that?
I'm not sure. What is it? 6 a.m.
Yeah, well, I think that's early. I think that's early for the neighbors.
Okay, any other questions?
Well, Mr. Chairman, I kind of think if the applicant's map does expire, the indefiniteness of this project is going to be a bigger issue for the neighbors. I think the key to getting it completed quickly is to make sure that they still have the permission from the county, I guess, the active permits to do so. And
Okay, thank you. I'll close the public hearing at this time. So is there a motion to grant the extension?
Mr. Chairman, I would make a motion that we approve the 2-year extension of time for the tentative subdivision map, conditional use permit, variances, and the noise exception.
Okay, so
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay, further discussion?
is there any way we could perhaps help both parties by making it a single year? Like you're saying, Jeff, there's, going indefinite would be hard, but they wouldn't be constructing at the time, so it wouldn't affect the neighbors so much. However, with 1 year, they would still be able to go forward, but it would alleviate some of the anxiety, as Larry says, for the neighbors that this is, stretching on forever.
Well, I'd have to say if they're gonna wind up and be finished with the underground and the paving by October, I believe he said, that's not very far off. And I think it would be better to get it over with as quickly as possible rather than.
Well, wouldn't 1 year do that too, if it's going to be that short?
You mean limit it to?
Well, I mean, if they're looking to have it done by October, then that would fall within the 1 year. Easy enough.
I don't have a problem with that. I don't know, maybe staff wants to comment on it.
Yeah, I think that's a question for the applicant to see what that 1 year does for them and if they can work within that time frame.
Okay.
Well, I mean, is it a question for them or for us?
That was a question for the applicant first, at least.
I mean, we're the one granting it, yes or no on, well, I mean, I'll hear from the applicant, of course.
Yeah, we need to hear what the feasibility of that is.
I'd remind the commission that you have a motion on the table in a second, I believe.
Yeah, and the motion is for a 2-year extension, so we need to vote on that one first. It's been moved in second, so roll call.
Mr. Curry's absent. Mr.
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
No.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader as recused. Mr. Rakucci?
Yes, okay, the motion carries a 2-year extension. Okay, thank you for that item. And now we'll go to our first timed item.
Mr. Chair, you should remind the audience that there's an appeal right.
Oh, there is an appeal right, and within 10 calendar days, and it's $564. Mr. Nader, anywhere in the general, can someone go get him? So we
Go wake him up.
Go wake him up. Where'd we go? Now we lost somebody. Maybe Wayne left. He saw the crowd. He's here. He saw the crowd and he left. Okay, we'll continue now that we're at full strength, at least 6 out of 7 that we started with. The next item is the Auburn Creekside Center, tentative map, conditional use permit, and variance, and staff.
Good morning.
Good morning again.
Flip back to the beginning of the presentation here. Okay. So the project before you is the Auburn Creekside project. The project is a regional shopping center up to 90,105 square feet located in the North Auburn area. This is the project site. It is located between Rock Creek Road and Target here in the North Auburn area. Just for reference, oh, skipped a few there. We are right about over here. So this is a plan that shows how the proposed project would fit in with the existing development. The project would be required to construct a parking lot connector at the northwest corner of the existing Target parking lot, and would also be required to realign the existing northeast driveway from Target into the proposed extension of Education Drive. This is the site plan. As I mentioned, the project is a regional shopping center up to 90,105 square feet. It is comprised of 5 buildings with 8 separate spaces. The project entitlements include a tentative parcel map to divide the existing 13.2-acre parcel into 9 separate parcels, including 2 open space areas that would encompass the existing wetland area. Additional entitlements for the project include a conditional use permit for the shopping center, variances to the sign ordinance, and then certification of the final environmental impact report. The site is bisected by this wetland area. It's approximately 3.4 acres. This tributary would be traversed by a bridge that would be created by the extension of Education Street over to Quartz Drive. Hydrology of the tributary and drainage of the site will be discussed at the end of my presentation by staff from the Engineering and Surveying Division.
Okay.
The site would be accessed from Highway 49, Education Street, Quartz Drive, and Rock Creek Road, and the project would also be required to make improvements to these roadways. The shopping center would contain a typical mix of retail uses as well as restaurant use, and restaurant use would be restricted to the western portion of the site. The project is proposed in 2 phases, but could be completed in one single phase if tenant interest and market events dictate. The first phase is the western portion of the site, which is over here shown in teal. And this portion of the project includes these buildings here, the associated parking, widening Highway 49, making some improvements to the signalization at Education Street, restricting access here, and then also adding in a new storm drain pipe and a new water pipe. The second phase of the project.
Can I ask you a question there? Wouldn't the first part of phase 1, if the back part is going to be phase 1, wouldn't that extend out to 49 then? That improvement there in the entrance?
This one right here? I'm sorry, can you repeat your question?
Where's 49 on that map?
49 is right here.
Okay, so
Yeah.
wouldn't you need the entrance to this whole area as part of phase 1?
Yes, that's correct, right here.
Okay, well, I just was a little confusing since the lines didn't show that.
It does have.
I'm sorry, I got messed up on my directions. That is the west one. Okay, my apologies.
So the eastern portion of the site includes the extension of Education Street over to Quartz Drive. The project will also be installing a new roundabout, but also include the construction of those buildings and associated parking, as well as new culverts at Rock Creek Road. The project requests approval of a variance to the sign ordinance to allow for multiple freestanding signs, to allow for multiple tenant names on freestanding signs, to increase the aggregate wall sign area, to reduce the setback for freestanding signs from intersections, and also to allow multiple tenant names on wall signs on the south face of Building C. This is a visual representation of what these signs would look like. These here are the larger freestanding signs. These are the smaller directional signs. And this bottom picture here is a visual representation of what the south face of Building C would look like as you're approaching the project from Quartz Drive and Education Street. So the large freestanding signs are going to be here, here, and here. They're represented by A1 through 3. And these smaller directional freestanding signs are B1 through 5 at these areas. The project has some constraints, including the...
A question for you. Do you
Yes.
have a sign? Excuse me, go back one.
Yeah.
Do you have the sign variance here? Do you have a comparable for what would be allowed under today's?
I don't have a comparable, but I can tell you that right now the sign ordinance only allows freestanding signs.
I need a picture. Your words wouldn't help. Thanks.
Okay, I don't
That's
have
okay.
a picture then.
That's
okay.
Oh, you can go ahead and
describe it for him.
So, sorry. The sign ordinance right now only allows for one name to be shown on freestanding signs for the shopping center, but increasingly requests are being made and approved to allow multiple tenant names. So that's what's being done here. As I mentioned, the site does have some visual constraints. The wetland area and then the configuration of these buildings make it difficult for motorists along 49 to see the tenants that are on the eastern side. So allowing the sign variance would allow motorists to have enough visual access to these areas to see those tenants from the road and make appropriate traffic maneuvers into the site. The parcel is zoned commercial plan development with a combining design corridor, as well as commercial plan development, combining design corridor, and combining flood hazard. The proposed use is a consistent use within this zone district with approval of a use permit. The portion of the site that is zoned flood hazard is the riparian area, and this area will be left undeveloped. This use is also consistent with the Auburn-Bowman Community Plan land use designation of commercial, and is also consistent with surrounding land uses, which includes commercial, retail, medical professional, multifamily, and single-family residences. There were a number of impacts that were analyzed in the environmental impact report. This looked at everything from air quality to soil to cumulative traffic impacts. And in the final EIR, all of the comments that were received as part of the draft EIR were incorporated and addressed. The final EIR concluded that with implementation of the mitigation measures, all but 2 impacts would be reduced to a less than significant level. These impacts are a delay at Highway 49 and Rock Creek Road and cumulative transportation and circulation. The significant and unavoidable impact to Highway 49 and Rock Creek Road is a 5.7 second delay. The county's threshold is 2.5 seconds, and anything above that delay is considered a significant and unavoidable impact. The significant and unavoidable impact to cumulative traffic is a result from the 450 additional vehicles that would be on the road generated by the project. This amounts to approximately 150 vehicles per lane, which exceeds the county's threshold of 100 vehicles per lane. The final environmental impact report determined that even with mitigation measures, this impact could not be reduced to a less than significant level and is therefore an unavoidable impact of the project. On August 9th, staff presented this item to the North Auburn MAC. The North Auburn MAC voted 5-0 to recommend approval of the project. And the North Auburn MAC also recommended that your commission review the requirements for Rock Creek Road and also require the project to construct a full build-out of Rock Creek Road upon construction of Phase 2. Staff's recommendations are to approve the tentative map, the conditional use permit, and the variances, and also to certify the final environmental impact report. Right now, staff from Engineering and Surveying is going to be presenting the hydrology and drainage, and then the applicant, John Margowski, has a couple slides. Then after that, I am happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Kelly. Any questions at this time? No. Okay, thank you.
All right.
I know drainage and hydrology is a big issue on this project, so I'm glad you're up here.
Good morning, Commissioners. Phil Franz from Engineering and Surveying. So I will be providing a brief description of the drainage information about the project based on your request for the last draft EIR hearing. You wanted to hear some additional drainage information. The project applicant has hired an engineer to prepare a preliminary drainage report. That report identified the project watershed area. As you can see here, it's approximately 429 acres. It extends, so here's the project site here, here's Bell Road, here's Atwood Road, and here's Kemper and New Airport Road. So you can see it's quite a large watershed. The project site itself is approximately 13.5 acres, or about 3% of the acreage of the entire watershed. The preliminary drainage report took a look at the existing flows right here, these 3 columns, and then it took a look at the flows with development of the project, and then took a look at the flows with development of the project and the mitigation that is included. So as you can see, On the 10-year storm event, there's 689 cubic feet per second of flow going through the site. The 25-year storm event, 887, and the 100-year storm event, 1,231 CFS. After development of the site, the project would increase flows by approximately 6 CFS for the 10-year event, 9 CFS for the 25-year event, and 12 CFS for the 100-year event. So they would be increasing flows. However, they are proposing to detain the runoff on the site so that they don't increase flows downstream, and that's shown here. Their flows actually, if you compare this number to the existing flows, it's actually 6 CFS less in the 10-year event, 9 CFS less in the 25-year event, and 15 CFS less than the existing after development. So they're holding that water back and releasing it so that the flows downstream are less than they are today. They're doing that in 3 underground detention storage areas. You can't really see them quite that well on this graphic, but there's an underground detention area located right here, another one located right here, and then a third located under the parking lot right here. This exhibit is showing the existing 100-year floodplain. It's not a FEMA floodplain, it's just a local floodplain that the county identifies. So this would show today the flows coming from the target site and that big watershed. When they come through the site, they will back up behind Rock Creek Road and then over top Rock Creek Road right along here and continue down off-site down towards Highway 49. So that's the existing 100-year floodplain. This would be the post-development 100-year floodplain after development. So you can see it changes slightly. But basically, in a 100-year event, the same situation would occur. The water would back up behind Rock Creek Road and eventually overtop Rock Creek Road in the 100-year event. We got some comments from downstream property owners, and we had the applicant's engineer do some more analysis on the 100-year floodplain downstream. And what they found out is that the 100-year floodplain downstream does not change from the existing condition. So the impacts downstream would be the same water surface elevation and 100-year floodplain limits as they are today. And that concludes my presentation on drainage. Do you guys have any questions on any of that?
I just have a question you may not be able to answer, but you know those your original chart there with the numbers and stuff. In some of your other projects in the county or from your experience, are those numbers really come true? You know, after the projects are built, how accurate or what kind of a degree of accuracy that you have in those numbers, I guess? Because, you know, I'm not a hydrologist, but even that and traffic are pretty complicated to do all the studies, but, you know, it's...
Right. Well, I mean, we don't go out and then measure them after the fact, but the engineering that's involved in it, I think we can rely on to say that they're
okay, thank you.
Accurate.
Any questions of staff on the hydrology? At least at the moment? Okay, thank you. And now the applicant would like to come forward, or applicant's representative.
Hello, I'm Elisa Raygoza with Auburn Pacific Properties. We've been doing these type of developments for the last 35 years. We do...
Could you speak up just a little bit? Could you speak up just a little bit louder?
Yes, I can.
No, I can hear kind of good, but maybe people in the back couldn't hear too much.
Okay. We focus on small, medium markets such as Auburn, and we pride ourselves on developing centers that fit within the community. Kelly did an excellent presentation, so I'm not going to try to repeat everything that she said. We just wanted to bring up a few points. This is a unique, smaller boutique infill site that has been over 10 years in analysis and processing of the EIR. The developer and staff have worked together to analyze and address regional and site issues. While the site is indeed a textbook infill site, much of the existing local infrastructure is over capacity and needs to be upgraded. Much of the EIR processing time was spent studying what needs to be done to fix the existing area's infrastructure. Area roads, regional sewer, regional drainage, and some items that were studied extensively. The benefits to the community are that we're going to increase sales tax, the addition of property tax, that we're creating 180 to 200 jobs, building a wetland preserve and setting aside an endowment for the maintenance. And do you have a site plan that shows that area?
I'm sorry, what?
A site plan that shows the wetland area?
I do, yeah.
Yeah, or you could do like the colored one that we had, the colored exhibit. Oh, one more.
One more.
Oh, maybe not. Okay. We can use this one. So the wetland area is right in there. And then we are also constructing $8 million worth of roadways. We're doing road work in front of the Target area and as well as the Bell intersection. We're constructing the education extension and bridge, the Courts roundabout, the extension of Courts Drive on the other side, as well as Rock Creek Road. And we're also constructing the on-site sewer trunk line replacement, and we're upgrading Rock Creek Road drainage that Phil was talking about here underneath. That's currently an issue. So with that said, we have a team here with our civil engineer if you guys had additional questions regarding drainage. And then we'd like to reserve the right to answer any questions from you guys.
Okay, thank you. Go ahead, Richard.
Let me see, as far as like the Education Drive and the bridge and the tie-in with Courts Drive.
Yes.
What's the timing on that? Is that going to be in phase one or?
Currently, it's looking like it's going to be all one phase. It depends on our tenant acquisition. If we have the tenants in this back area, then we will do it all at one time. If not, then the phase one that we had presented would just include up into the bridge area there. And then when we started phase two. But right now it looks like we'd be building all of them. And our current construction timetable, dependent on getting permits from agencies, would be that we would be turning over to tenants in 2018.
Okay. So all the Highway 49, Bell Road, education, that would all be completed as part of phase one?
The Highway 49, the education up to the crossing would be completed as phase one.
Okay, so the intersection with 49 would be completed?
Yes.
Okay. And then you say you're improving the drainage in Rock Creek Road?
Yes.
What are you going to be doing there?
I will defer to the civil engineer to be able to come explain exactly what the improvements are on that, if that's okay with you guys.
Yeah, that's fine.
Okay.
Could you answer when on that same question?
On the drainage,
Right, on Rock Creek, is that phase one?
I think that was actually included within phase two.
So
So it was just up to this driveway area here that we were doing.
So the flood problem control wouldn't happen until phase two?
Yes.
Does the civil engineer want to come forward and answer that question about that Richard had?
Chair Ricucci, Commissioners, Greg Bardini, President of Martin Metallo.
Okay.
There's going to be significant improvements that occur on Rock Creek due to the deficient culvert that's there. So right now that culvert has about a cross-sectional area of about 20 square feet, so that'll be increased. That is a phase 2 improvement. But it will reduce the correspondence, the flooding of that region and the overtopping. It'll be reduced to only occur in an event greater than a 25-year storm.
Okay. And that'll be what, multiple culverts or what?
Yeah, enlarging the culvert, increasing that size from about 20 square feet to 255 square feet.
Okay.
So it's a significant upgrade.
Okay. That answers my question. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm an electrical engineer, so, but if you're going to increase it from how many, 20 square feet to 200, it seemed like the water would rush a lot faster downstream and cause the downstream people, I know we heard the other report, but it would cause more of a problem for them if you're increasing the culverts. Like nothing's going to stand back of that.
Yeah, a lot of times that's the case. In this case, what happens is it's just overtopping the road, and it's unrestricted. So that same amount of flow is getting there. It's just going over the road instead of through a culvert.
Okay, so you just be going in a different direction under the road rather than over the top, but it's still the same amount.
Correct.
Okay. Okay, thank you. Is there any question for?
Thank you.
Okay. Does staff have any follow-up comments at this time? And I'll open up to the audience.
No, I do not have additional.
Okay, at this time, would the public like to make a comment? And how many people are here on this project? Anybody want to comment on this? No one? Okay. Close the public hearing then, and any additional questions of staff or the developer that's commission members would like to raise?
Well, I have one concern, I have one concern concerning the Rock Creek Road flood control there being in phase 2 instead of phase 1. I almost feel like that, at least that section might be considered in phase 1 because they're doing the work already. It's going to change the flow, et cetera, to some degree during construction. And that seems to be the only one that's might be critical to have done as soon as they start, as opposed to indeterminate. It might be overflowing that road the way it is right now for years if they don't get phase 2 done. That's my only concern I can see in the project.
Do we know if phase 1 is just built, will the flooding will the amount of water that's going over the top of Rock Creek right now, will that be increased if phase 1 is just built?
With the development of just phase 1, they still have to mitigate their increase in runoff, so they'd be reducing their runoff, and so no additional flows would be occurring downstream with the development of just phase 1. There wouldn't be any increase in flows.
So the overflow would be the same,
It would be the
or
same
less,
as it is
according
today.
to those
Yeah,
figures you
correct.
gave us earlier.
Correct.
Okay.
So just so I understand, so the mitigation will take effect to keep the flow the way it is?
Less.
That's correct.
Or less?
Yes.
So even so, it still overtops that road?
It does. It does today, and then with the
But if we
development
put
of
in the
phase 1.
culverts now, it wouldn't? In a
But it-
25-year, only in 100?
Correct. Yeah, anything under, once the culverts are installed, anything under, say, a 25-year event, a 10-year event would not overtop the road. It would flow under the road. But in a 100-year event, it would still overtop the road.
And right now, it overtops it right now during any kind of a...
Yeah, maybe a 2-year, a 10-year. Correct.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Any other comments?
I'm really familiar with this property, and I'm just absolutely amazed that it's going to get developed because you can see the tremendous amount of infrastructure work that's needed to do this with the limited amount of actual retail space that you get from this. And to me, it's going to be an asset for the community for a couple of reasons, because it gives another alternative access that's an improved access with education coming through to courts. So people that are coming from the north and are coming into, say, Safeway or Ross, instead of having to come to Bell Road potentially, or even using Rock Creek, which is a substandard road, they can now come through there. If they're coming to Target, again, or Safeway, or any of the stores that are in there, they can use that. Other than, Bell Road, as we all know, is a very busy traffic area and intersection. This kind of helps to spread the traffic out. Plus, the other thing that I see as a real benefit in this is that if you go up to the courts area, kind of more north, towards the park, there's a lot of apartments in there, and there's a lot of people who walk to those stores. And this will give them a good access point into those stores when they're walking pedestrians, because you see them now and they're walking in the dirt and whatever, trying to get to those stores. So this will give them a much better access in. So I see a lot of positive to this. And again, I'm just absolutely amazed that it's getting developed. That's just my local perspective.
Okay, is there any other comments? If not, Chair will entertain a motion.
Do you want to put it back up? Thank you. Oh.
We'll put that slide right back up. And real quick, I'd like to make just a couple corrections on the motion, and most notable are in the first recommendation in your staff report. There's a reference to attachments for the MMRP and the findings. So I would like to clarify in the record that the Mitigation Monitoring and Reporting Program is attachment G to the staff report, and your findings are a separate attachment H. Also, for the items 2, 3, and 4, we want to make sure your recommendation includes that those actions are subject to the conditions of approval in the attachment F of the staff report, and the findings.
Like I can remember all of that.
I just stated it for you.
You may have to cue me when that comes up, but I'm gonna make a stab at this. Am I on? Okay. I'd like to make a motion that we certify the Auburn Creek side final environmental impact report pursuant to the California Environmental Quality Act, and adopt the mitigation monitoring reporting program supported by the incorporating by reference in its entirety the findings of fact and the statement of overriding consideration. And am I supposed to add something here? And attachments?
No, EJ read into the record the attachments.
Okay.
I'd suggest, because you have several of these, to take each one separately.
As a motion? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Is there a second?
Is there a second? Okay, moving second and roll call.
Mr. Curry is absent. Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Riccucci?
Yes.
Okay, then I'll take the second one. As I would move that we approve a tentative map to create 9 parcels, including 2 open space parcels. And is there an addition that I need to add to that one at all? Is there anything
Just subject to the conditions of approval and findings.
Okay, so move.
So seconded.
Moved in second and roll call, please.
Mr. Curry is absent. Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Riccucci?
Yes. Your motion.
Okay, next one, sorry. Gotta wake up. I'll move that we approve a conditional use permit to allow for the development of a retail shopping center.
Seconded.
Moved in second and roll call.
Mr. Curry is absent. Mr. Sevison? Yes. Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Riccucci?
Yes.
Okay, and approve a variance to allow for multiple tenants' names on freestanding signs, more than 2 freestanding signs for the project, and increase the maximum aggregate sign area for wall signs, reduce the 100-foot setback from an intersection for freestanding signs, and to allow for multiple tenant names on wall signs at the south face of the building C.
Seconded.
Okay, further discussion. Go ahead.
Is there
on the, it says increased maximum aggregate sign area. Do we have a maximum number that they're going for?
Yes, right now the ordinance allows for 1 linear foot per frontage of area, and they're requesting 2 linear feet per square footage of frontage area.
Okay, and then the second one was question, it says for reduce the 100-foot setback from the intersection for the freestanding signs. Is there a traffic problem with that? Is there a reason that we have 100 foot from the intersection to start with? Is that a view thing for traffic, or what is the purpose on that one?
Typically for sight distance. You don't
Or driving?
Right. Typically, you don't have a sign. If you have a sign right on a corner, sometimes that interrupts the sight distance of vehicles driving by.
Right.
Like in this case, it was determined that they were located in a place where it would not interfere with sight distance.
How many feet are they reducing that 100 feet by?
A specific footage has not been identified. This would be identified during the design review. That is required as a condition of approval. However, it would not be allowed to interfere with sight distance for for motorists.
Traffic.
Okay.
Okay.
And Building C is the one in the back, or is it,
That's correct. It's in the eastern portion of the site,
Right.
and the south face would be the building as you're approaching the site from Quartz Drive.
okay, yeah, I think that they need a little extra signage there for that Building C, else they'll never see
way
it.
back.
Yeah.
Way back there. I think that's one of the major reasons for this last item.
Right.
Okay, there's been a motion and a second. Roll call.
Mr. Curry's absent. Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
Yes.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Rakucci?
Yes. Okay, that completes this item. And prior to going on to the park at Granite Bay, does anyone need a short
Take five,
break?
please.
Maybe we'll just take about a 10-minute break here for ourselves and for anybody in the audience, and then we'll start the meeting again in 10 minutes. Oh, he's here?
With Karen.
Okay. Give Larry another 1 minute, and then I think our 10 minutes is
Now,
up.
I came back here and I saw your glasses sitting there.
Can we reconvene and start our meeting again, please?
On that creek side. That goes through the house.
I believe so.
Okay.
Nobody.
We didn't have an appeal.
Okay, well, thank you. Boy, that was quick. Thank you for your attentiveness here, and we'll have this next item now, which is the park at Granite Bay. And George, it's all yours.
Thank you, Chairman Rakucci. As always, it's nice to be before you today. My name is George Rosasco, and I'm a supervising planner with the Planning Services Division. As you stated, the project before you today is the park at Granite Bay. To give you an idea of where it's located, this is regionally at the top of the map, is close to Sierra College and Douglas. And then you come down and about 1.2 miles, and it's on the left in an area referred to as the island in Granite Bay. Give you a better sense, this is the actual island. The orange area is the actual project site. The area that's dashed with sort of a light greenish and a red, that's the exterior boundaries of the island. Everything outside of that is in the city of Roseville. And then to the south, where the dashed green line, that's the county of Sacramento. So it truly is an island. Associated with the project today would be an amendment to the Granite Bay Community Plan to change the project site's land use from rural low residential density to, rural low residential density of 0.09 to 2.3 acres per unit to medium density residential, which would allow 2 to 4 dwelling units per acre. A rezoning of the project site from residential single family combining ag with a minimum building site of 40,000 square feet to residential single family with a minimum building site of 7,000 square feet. There's also a vesting tentative subdivision map, which is very similar to this, that will have 56 lots, 7 open space lots. The lots that will have residents on them range in size from about 7,000 square feet to 17,000 square feet. And there is also a request for a variance to allow an increase in the maximum lot coverage on lots of less than 8,000 square feet from the 40% that's allowed now to 50%, to allow those lots to have single-story houses and still have a house that is acceptable to the market. So, with that, as I said, the lots range in size from about 7,000 to 17,000. It will be a mix of 1- and 2-story homes. The homes will use masonry, stucco, concrete, and wood, and neutral earth tones, as specified in the Granite Bay Community Plan, to blend in with the area. Each house will have a minimum of 4 parking spaces. In addition to those 4 parking spaces, there'll be parking on one side of the street in this subdivision, which would allow 98 spaces, which would be available for the residents. Or as you can see at the front of the project next to the entryway, there's a public park that will be available to the public. That parking will be used to provide spaces for the people when they come to the park. 14 of the perimeter lots, which I'll get to a little bit more in depth later, will be deed restricted so that they can only have one-story houses to reduce sort of a visual impact on adjacent properties. The primary project access will be from Sierra College Boulevard through a gated entryway, which will remain open from dawn to dusk to traffic and pedestrian so that they can use the public park. There will be, sorry, I didn't mean to snap my paper that much into the microphone. A secondary emergency vehicle access will be available for the project in the northwest corner onto Eckerman Road up by the green, larger green open space lot. There's a lot of controversy surrounding that emergency vehicle access. South Placer Fire District has already issued a letter saying that it's acceptable for the project. Mike Ritter from South Placer Fire District is here to speak to any issues with regard to fire safety or the use of that emergency vehicle access onto Eckerman. There was an environmental impact report prepared for the project. At the beginning of the environmental impact report process, it was determined that these agricultural resources, biological resources, cultural resources, geology and soils, hazards and hazardous materials, mineral resources, population and housing, public services, and recreation will not have a significant impact. They either have no impact or less than significant, so they weren't examined further in the environmental impact report for the project. These issues, however, were determined to have the potential for significant impacts without mitigation. Air quality, greenhouse gas emissions, hydrology and water quality, land use and planning, noise, transportation, traffic and circulation, utilities and service systems, and aesthetics. Before I move on to the most controversial of those, I should say that we did receive some correspondence on behalf of some of the adjoining property owners from Shute, Mahaly, and Weinberger. Our environmental consultant here is who will come up after I give my presentation to speak to those issues. I should also tell you that when we went through the environmental impact report, that it found that there were no significant unavoidable impacts. All the impacts were mitigated to a less than significant level. The issues that have definitely risen to the surface as the ones that are concerning to the surrounding property owners have to do with noise, hydrology, traffic, land use, and aesthetics. So I'll go into depth a little bit more about that. With regard to noise, the front four lots, 2, 5, 55, and 56 of this project, and I'm going to flip back to this really quick. I'm sorry, 2, 1, 55, and 56 won't meet the noise standards from the noise coming off Sierra College Boulevard with regard to our noise ordinance. So there'll be those 2 landscape lots. Behind those 2 landscape lots, there'll be a 2-foot berm and a 6-foot block wall that will attenuate the sound to bring them into compliance. It will wrap around 55 and 56 and lots 1 and 2. The noise associated with the public park at the front of the project is not anticipated to exceed any noise standards, so there's no mitigation with regard to that. Hydrology with regard to the project, that was also a topic of great discussion. There is, at the time, some flooding issues on Eckerman Road, which is located adjacent to the northwest corner of the project. There was some concern that the project, because it takes up a lot of the local drainage basin, would exacerbate that flooding problem. However, the project has been engineered in such a way that that green area in the northwest corner has a detention basin, and it will meter the flow out of the project, which will either do one of 2 things. Result in no additional flooding problems, but in more likely, it will minimize the flooding issue that is taking place on Eckerman Road. So it should actually make the situation better. Excuse me. The next item on the issue is, I should also tell you that I have other staff members with me if you would like to go into more depth with regard to hydrology. Sarah Gilmore is here from Engineering Surveying. Then with regard to traffic, so this was also discussed in great length. The actual project will generate 618 trips a day, and it will not change the level of service at any of the intersections to which it would be normally an impact to. The existing traffic on Sierra College Boulevard at this time is about 32,000 trips a day. It's anticipated that at some point in the future, Sierra College will carry about 56,000 trips a day. The other issue that came up in depth with regard to traffic is this project is a right-in, right-out project. So if you're going to go out, you have to go down towards Sacramento County, and if you want to go back to Granite Bay, you're going to have to go down to Old Auburn intersection and make a U-turn. So as part of the traffic analysis, there was a weaving study done, which showed that when you go out, right in, there's enough area between where you go out of the project and down to that intersection to go in and out of traffic to get into the turn lane to make a U-turn and do that safely. I'm going to switch back slides really quick here. But by far, the biggest issues were land use consistency because of the general plan amendment and rezoning, and zoning compatibility or land use compatibility. So what I would tell you is with regard to Granite Bay Community Plan consistency, it would locate higher density land uses closer to services. Residents would be consistent with a lot of the size and scale of adjoining properties in the island area. Projects will provide appropriate infrastructure, recreational activities would be promoted, and a diversity of housing will be provided. The project will provide transitional buffers from adjoining properties. In the original slide, this project will actually have landscaping along the front and will actually have a 15-foot landscaping buffer all the way around the perimeter of the site. And I'll get to some view sheds and that sort of thing when we get to the aesthetics portion of the project. But with regard to the community plan, there's actually 22 community plan policies that would apply to this project. This project's consistent with 21 of those. The one that it's not consistent with is there's a policy in the community plan that says you should not create projects that need variances. We can talk about that more in depth later if you would like as well, why they're requesting that variance. There's also another policy in the Granite Bay Community Plan which I wanted to bring to your attention. It's policy 3211, and that's the one that talks about when it's appropriate to grant land use changes in the Granite Bay Community Plan. And as always, if you have any questions, feel free to stop me at any time. It's policy, as I said, 3211. And it says to preserve the character of the community, land use changes shall be considered only if the change can be designed, and implemented to be consistent with the contiguous properties. In determining consistencies, all elements of the community plan shall be reviewed. The change is consistent with or adequately buffered from contiguous properties and will provide for a reasonable transition between land uses. The change shall not significantly impact the level of services provided in the vicinity, and there is or will be adequate infrastructure to serve the proposed development. The development is effectively screened as to not be perceived by the public as high density. So keep those in mind as you look at the project. So there's a wide range of, I'm going to go to the next one. So this gives you an idea of the actual plan designations in the island. Where this project is, it's rural residential, 2.3 to 4.6 acre minimum, and then below Old Auburn Road, rural low density residential, 0.9 to 2.3 acres. But what I wanted to take you to here was, with regard to land use compatibility, the island contains about 122 parcels that range in size from 0.9 to 8.7 acres. Wide range of parcels in this area. 84%. Oh, I'm sorry. How about now? Okay. The island area contains 122 parcels that range in size from 0.19 to 8.7 acres. 84% of those parcels, 102, have been developed with single-family residents. The other 20 remaining parcels are vacant or undeveloped. Of those 122 parcels developed with single-family residences, 29 of the parcels, approximately 24%, are of similar size to the parcels proposed in the project. So this is the actual zoning in the area. North of Old Auburn Road is residential single-family, combining a minimum building site of 40,000 square feet. And then you can see that's pretty consistent. And then you get down below Old Auburn, and the density goes up a little bit to RSBX 20. So keep in mind, there's a wide range of parcels in here. And also the other thing to keep in mind is, well, there is sort of a diversity inside the island area. When you go right outside the island area into the city of Roseville, the density goes up dramatically. So to the east of the project is low-density residential, 0.5 to 6.9 units per acre. West and north is also considered by the city of Roseville to be low-density residential, and it has a density of 2.4 units to 3.3 units per acre. Further north at Sierra College and East Roseville Parkway, they also have, and don't ask me why the city of Roseville calls these all low-density residentials, but the numbers change. They do things differently than we do, but they also call that low-density residential, but that allows 6.2 units to the acre. And then going up towards the vicinity of Sierra College and around Eureka Road, there's some high density in the city of Roseville that allows up to 25.3 units per acre. So the island's pretty diverse, but once you go outside in the city of Roseville, it's pretty consistently a high-density residential area. So the next large issue with regard to the project was aesthetics. As I alluded to earlier, they are deed restricting 14 lots to reduce the size and bulk of the area to 1 story. So those lots with the stars are the ones that will be deed restricted to 1 story. The proposed fencing for the project. The red lines are 36-inch split rail decorative fencing. Then the black area will be good neighbor fencing, 6-foot high, board, pretty standard throughout Granite Bay. The blue area in the front is the actual sound wall. Now, here's the visual simulations that were done for the project, because there's a lot of concerns that this project would not be look appropriate in the island area. So they took views from, you can see there is 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, all the way around the project site. And they put a visual simulation together with what the project will look like 10 years from now, with landscaping and the walls and all that sort of thing. So from Sierra College Boulevard looking west, the top picture is what you see now. 10 years from now is what you'll see. Same with from Sierra College Boulevard looking northwest. You can kind of see out into the project site right now. What you will be looking for, what you will be looking at now is more landscaping in the entryway. From Haskell Way, which is below the project, looking north, you can see the project. You can't see the project in the top, but you can see the barn that is framed in. And then on the bottom, you can see the barn. Then you can see the landscaping that's proposed and the fencing. Then you can see a few roof lines. And then this is from Eckerman Road, which is the northwest corner of the project. There's an existing wrought iron gate to the left of where their emergency vehicle access would be. So the bottom slide is what it will look like 10 years from now. And this is from Annabelle Avenue looking south, and you have to look really closely at this one. At the top on the horizon, you can just kind of see it's open, but when you look at the bottom picture, you can look over, you'll see more landscaping and just a couple of roof lines. So that is ultimately what the project will look like at 10 years. With that, I think I should tell you that we are recommending approval of those 4 entitlements that I discussed earlier. of the project, we're recommending that you recommend to the Board of Supervisors approval. I should tell you that this has gone to the MAC as an action item. The MAC voted, let me see, I don't know the exact. Okay, I heard the murmurs. It went 3-2, and the motion was made that the motion maker did not believe that the project was appropriate based on the amount of concessions that it was asking for to be installed. And so 3-2, they decided that it shouldn't go forward. So with that, did you have any questions for me? Okay, I'm sorry. So at the MAC, it was 3-2 against. The motion was that based on the amount of concessions necessary for this project to move forward, that it was not appropriate. That was the motion. Did you have any questions?
When you were reading the general plan, sort of
community plan
or
language?
the community plan for kind of objectives, and in that it stated about transitions, from one kind of neighborhood to the next neighborhood.
Right.
Do you believe as staff that there's a sufficient amount of transition because we have larger acreages in the area, and I think we're talking about a 15-foot kind of landscaping buffer around the edges of this where the larger parcels are. So do you feel like that's a significant enough of a transition?
I do, and let me find the map that I wanted to show you a little bit more. And I'll tell you why I do. As when you looked at the visual simulations, it's very well, they're
the microphone, please.
Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know why I'm being so quiet. I'm not usually that quiet. So what I would tell you with regard to transitions is yes, I do think when you look at the visual simulations and you look at the fencing and the landscaping, there's not much of a visual impact. And then you look at the project in the scope and context of the area, and a lot of the lots that are of a similar size and scope to this project are directly to the north on Annabelle Avenue. And those lots are about the same size as what's being proposed in the subdivision. And they have generally low-slung, one-story houses on small lots. So, yeah, I think when you put it all together and you make it neutral colors and you have the landscaping and you have the fencing and you have this vast array of housing and you have the smaller houses to the north, I think it does transition appropriately.
All right.
Okay, thank you, George.
Was Sarah going to talk from?
If you would like her to, there's plenty of staff here. We have staff that has more expertise with regard to traffic. We have staff that has more expertise with regard to drainage and hydrology. But Christina Irwin, our environmental impact consultant, was going to give a little bit of a discussion about the letter we received from Shoot Mahali, if you would like her to.
I just had questions on grading because this site is is sloping, so I had some questions on that. So
yeah, I would defer to Sarah on that one.
Whenever that's appropriate,
Okay.
I had a question.
Okay.
Any other questions for George at this time? Okay, now, and then, so, go ahead, come on up.
Excuse me. Let me get my stuff out of your way. Yep.
Good morning. My name is Christina Irwin with ESA. We're the environmental consultant for the county, and we prepared the environmental impact report before you today. As George mentioned, county staff received a letter yesterday specifically commenting on the environmental analysis and portions of the project itself. So I just wanted to provide a brief overview of the key points and give you an idea of what was in that letter and staff's response as well. There were 5 high-level items that were discussed in this letter. Access to Eckerman Road, because it is a private road, drainage and hydrology, and stormwater running off of the project site, traffic, planning issues and plan consistency, and mitigation fees. So I'm going to start just walking through the letter in the same order that it is presented there. Beginning with Eckerman Road, it's acknowledged by county staff and discussed in the environmental impact report that Eckerman is a private road. And currently the property owner and the project proponent currently is a property owner of Eckerman Road and has an easement to that road as well, and would continue to have access to that road. The issue also was discussed with regard to emergency vehicle access and emergency vehicles being able to access the project site down Eckerman Road and through the proposed emergency vehicle access. And as George mentioned, South Placer Fire District has already weighed in on their opinion about being able to use Eckerman as an access point to the project site in the event of an emergency. Drainage was the next big topic. Consistent with county guidance, the project drainage would have a zero net increase or slightly improve the amount of storm drainage that is coming off the project site. There are a couple different elements that are proposed as part of the project. There's bioretention, which is a preferred method. There are two overland swales, one on the north property boundary and one on the southern property boundary, to collect stormwater that is actually coming onto the project site from offsite areas. In addition, there's a detention basin in the northwest corner of the project site. Those elements would be vegetated and would provide water quality water treatment prior to the water entering the storm drainage system. After the water is in the detention basin, it would go to an underground vault where there would be additional water treatment before it is before the stormwater exits out the northwest corner onto Eckerman. There are no changes proposed to the Eckerman drainage system as it stands right now. All of the changes that we're talking about with regard to storm drainage would be on site. And there was also another comment with concern about the potential for stormwater runoff to cause erosion or siltation on surrounding parcels. The hydrology report went in pretty good depth about stormwater impacts, including volumes and directionality of stormwater flows, and we think that erosion and siltation would be addressed both through the bioretention systems in the swales and in the drainage detention basin, and then further in the water quality vault that is proposed as part of the system. And the swales and the detention basins is also part of low impact development, which is in compliance with the county's MS4 permit. And if you'd like, Sarah can go into more detail about the requirements of that and about how stormwater is handled through the county. Traffic was the next big issue that was brought up in this letter, particularly level of service and impacts at the Annabelle Avenue and Sierra College Boulevard intersection. The traffic study analyzed a number of intersections, including this one. It's important to note that Sierra College Boulevard is under the jurisdiction of the City of Roseville, so certain threshold criteria were used in compliance with Roseville's thresholds. The study determined that there would not be a substantial increase in traffic at the Annabelle and Sierra College intersection. The increase in delay would be 0.2 seconds in the AM peak hour and 2.3 seconds in the PM peak hour. So that was not determined to be a significant increase in traffic. There was also a question in the letter about how vehicles who are turning right off of Annabelle Avenue onto southbound Sierra College would weave with and merge with vehicles that are traveling southbound Sierra College and trying to make the right into the project site. The distance between Annabelle Avenue and the project driveway is about 770 feet. And the roadway slopes down from north to south at about a 3% slope. There's both adequate distance between Annabelle and the project driveway and to have that weaving occur, as well as having vehicles turning left from northbound Sierra College into the project site to be able to see traffic that is coming southbound on Sierra College. So the impact was determined to not be significant, that there would be enough distance to allow weaving to occur and enough visual sightline to allow for safe travel. There was also another question about ingress and egress to the project site. The project proposes a deceleration lane going to the right-hand turn into the project site and an acceleration lane on the right exit from the project site. That configuration would not change in the future as Sierra College widens, as is the plans in the future. All of the Sierra College widening would happen within the median and not on the shoulders of the roadway, so that those access points in the acceleration and deceleration lanes would not change. Lastly, there were comments about planning issues and consistency with the Placer County General Plan and with the Granite Bay Community Plan. George touched on some of those issues already and discussed some of the policies specifically. It's of note, case law has dictated that the standard for consistency with a plan is to determine whether the project is in general harmony with the plan. And CEQA case law has come down that says a project doesn't need to be consistent with every single policy, but the general harmony rule is in effect, and that's been shown through the judicial system. So for any other planning issues that might come up or mitigation fee comments, county staff is here to address your questions. But those were the high-level topics that the county received yesterday. I'm happy to answer any of your questions.
Any further questions at this time? No, thank you.
Thank you.
Does the county have any additional people to bring forward?
So, Chairman Wakuchi, I think now would be the time for Sarah Gilmore from Engineering and Surveying to discuss the grading issue that Commissioner Nader was asking about. Is that okay? Yes?
Yeah, sure.
Go ahead.
Yeah. We get all the staff comments out first, and then we'll have the applicant come up.
This one? No. That one? Okay.
I don't think I actually heard a question, just that there was one.
I didn't present the question yet. I was just kind of waiting for the appropriate time. Because this is a kind of a sloped area, I was interested in when it does get graded, will the project be higher or lower than the adjacent properties? Because that obviously will have some visual impact depending on how that ends up.
That is correct. And this project went through a number of iterations in the grading and the edge conditions that ended with, they're pretty consistent where they can be with the site actually balancing. The preliminary design shows a balance in cut and fill. And if I can show you, there's drainage that generally comes into the site from this direction and this direction, enters, the site collects it, and it leaves over here at the northwest corner. So while within the property, the project does deal with it differently. Those edge conditions are maintained. And so the site will have a fill of up to 5.5 feet at these locations, because those are sort of a valley in this rolling hill terrain, whereas it will be more of a cut situation at the other ends of the site, specifically here and here. There's a lot more nuances to that, but that's the overall view.
As you kind of go around the project, are they higher or lower or at grade with the adjacent properties, or do you know that?
It's very rolling. I'd say in general, this is the lowest point here and here, where the site would be up to 5 feet higher than the adjacent existing. And this is where vegetated swales.
It's sloping kind of towards Old Auburn, right? Is that correct? I mean, the topography for that general area is kind of sloping towards.
No, this is actually a low spot that generally the entire site ends up draining this direction towards Eckerman.
Oh, okay. So I guess the property to the north, is it going to be higher than the project?
Let me pull out my grading plan. Just 1 second. or if Jeff Carpenter has this stuff memorized, I'd be happy to have him talk.
Okay, thank you. Any other staff people going to make presentations? If not,
Not at this time, unless you have any questions. I did want to direct
questions
you
of
that.
staff? Okay, at this time, I'd like to call the applicant or his or her representative to the podium.
Mr. Chairman, members of the Commission, Marcus Loduca, 3200 Douglas Boulevard in Roseville. Before I start off to answer the question, other than at the northwest corner, where again we have separation with not only the 15-foot buffer, but a roadway, so there isn't really adjacency to the house. In all other locations, we're lower than the adjacent homes. Just to directly answer that, I asked our engineer, not that I would know, but they did. On behalf of longtime Granite Bay resident and home builder John Tattersall, I'm pleased to be before you with a recommendation for approval from your staff on an infill project in an infill area in Placer County. I'm particularly pleased that after we had an EIR prepared to analyze the project, we come forward today with a project with no significant residual environmental effects after all mitigation measures are applied, which measures we're in agreement with, as we are with all the conditions of approval in the 26 pages of conditions that have been proposed by your staff. Staff report in the presentation today did a very thorough job of describing and analyzing the project and discussing some of the major issues that have been raised during the long planning process on this project. I'd like to just provide some additional background for you and some information and highlight a couple of key aspects of the project that I think need to be raised to your attention. First, though, a little history. The island area is so named because after the annexation of the Southeast Roseville Specific Plan in 1987, commonly known as Johnson Ranch, that was allowed to go forward under state law at the time, under the Cortese-Knox legislation, that actually would allow islands to be created, surrounded by a city or by a city and an adjacent county. A few years later, that law changed. And so the situation you have here, where you have a area surrounded on three sides by the city of Roseville and completely developed Sacramento County, simply would not be allowed. It would have to be incorporated into the city. As the staff report notes, as George highlighted, the island area contains quite a mix of parcel sizes. Of those 122 parcels that are out there, as George noted, nearly a quarter of them are of the same size as the lot sizes as the project before you today. And that same lot size is not just, again, as George highlighted, not just in other parcels in the northern part of the island, but also in the adjacent city of Roseville on three sides. Our proposed density is 3.4 units to the acre. Typically low-density residential in much parts of the region is 1 to 6.9 units to the acre. Under the community plan, this is considered a medium-density product. Our proposed project, however, was not as you see before you today right there. In the fall of 2014, the project contained 94 homes with a minimum lot size of 3,000 square feet and an average lot size of 4,400 square feet. The project at the time required a community plan amendment to high-density residential category, and the park in the project was just under an acre and a half in size, and the project also contained a Paseo trail through the middle of it, a rose garden, and a tot lot. The buffer around the edge of the property was 10 feet in width, the landscape buffer, and all homes in the project at that time were to be 2 stories in height. This version of the project was presented to the Granite Bay MAC in November of 2014 as an information item. After that MAC meeting, John Tattersall went to work to start revising the project in an attempt to address the issues and concerns that were raised at that MAC meeting. The number of homes were reduced from 94 to 84. The average, the lot sizes then jumped up to about 3,200 square feet minimum to almost 7,000 square feet. All homes, however, in the project at that time remained 2 stories in height. The project still required a community plan amendment to high-density residential. The buffer was increased by 50% from 10 to 15 feet around the north, south, and west sides of the project. And the park remains still about an acre and a half with the rose garden and the Paseo trail through the middle of it, as well as the tot lot. When the notice of preparation on the project's EIR went out at the end of 2014, that was the version of the project that the EIR at that time was going to analyze as it went forward. We started to receive a number of community comments on the NOP that the county was receiving and passing along to us. But rather than just relying on written comments submitted on the NOP, Mr. Tattersall wanted to engage the community in a face-to-face discussion to better understand people's issues and concerns with the project. At that point, my client and his team started a broad community outreach effort, sending notices to 3 community meetings to folks in the northern portion of the island area to basically meet with them and get their feedback directly. Mr. Tattersall also announced the meetings, those meetings at several meetings of the Granite Bay MAC. Those meetings were held at the Granite Bay Library on February 19th, March 18th, and April 8th of last year. A total of fewer than 20 residents, some repeat attendees, attended any of those 3 meetings. My client and his engineer, Wood Rogers, also held a separate meeting with Eckerman Road residents to hear their concerns directly related to Eckerman Road. After those meetings, the project took a step back, the project team, to talk about the issues we had heard, the concerns, and how to look at those from the project, not just in terms of let's come up with a gross density, let's come up with a number of homes, and just plug that in a new number. But rather, we decided to look at other parcels in the island and the northern portion of the island to see what was there in terms of a range of lot sizes that the project could be consistent with. As the photos illustrate, 2 parcels away are homes on Annabelle Avenue. As you go a couple parcels east of Eckerman Road, the parcels on Annabelle are 1/4 acre size or less. That entire length of Annabelle as you approach Sierra College Boulevard. That became the standard on which Mr. Tattersall designed the revised project around. He said, how do we fit into that, keeping that buffer? What changes do we need to make? And then how many homes do you end up with? What we ended up with was we shrunk the size of the park, deleted the Rose Garden, deleted the Paseo Trail, the Tot Lot, and ended up with 56 homes. And that's the project you see before you today, again, of lot sizes that now range, as George said, from 7,150 to a little over 17,000 square feet, with an average lot size of a little over 9,000 square feet, or roughly a 1/4 acre in size. Another issue that came up relative to the visual impacts that we heard was the fact that the project before had all 2-story homes. So taking a step back from that, we decided, in recognition of what our neighbors were saying relative to those visual impacts, notwithstanding the visual buffer, the landscape buffer that we created, we deed restricted the 14 lots that were shown on the slide that are the homes nearest to the 6 homes that are around the project to one story. And again, there will be other homes in the project that will be 1 story as well. That's the basis of the variance request, is not for those 14 deed restricted, which are more, at least 8,000 square feet or greater, but for other homes, particularly in the internal part of the subdivision, to allow us to have a mix of uses as opposed to having a straight line of 2-story homes, to allow us to have some 1-story homes there that we propose to increase variance to increase the lot coverage from 40 to 50% on lots that are less than 8,000 square feet, so we can have some additional 1-stories throughout the project. In terms of setbacks, as you can see from the photo there, the homes around the edge of the property, in some cases, are built within 15 feet of the property line. They're very, very close. Our homes, however, will have much greater rear yard setbacks. If you look at the northwest portion, there isn't even homes adjacent to the northwest portion. It's a single-loaded street that dead ends, and that's where the EVA is and the water quality basin. The homes in the site will have a rear yard setback of 35 feet to the property line for a single story and 42.5 feet for 2-story homes, again, to provide that setback and that greater relief from our immediate neighbors. The project still has a park site. It's a little over 0.8 of an acre, which can still accommodate youth sports practices, such as youth soccer. It is not of a size that you could have games on, tournaments, games. It's really for practice. And that's the greatest need if you go throughout the region. Folks have fields to play tournaments and play matches on, They just don't have enough practice fields that are out there. People will use a dirt lot if they have to, just because the number of youth sports leagues that are out in, especially in South Placer County. Both Granite Bay FC and Granite Bay Youth Lacrosse have both expressed an interest in wanting to use this park site for practice. As George noted, and as the staff report also explains, the gate to the project will remain open during daylight hours, so people will not have to worry about getting into the gate during that time. The Granite Bay Community Plan merely requires gates to have a pedestrian gate that's opened on to dusk. Our gate will be opened on to dusk. The park is not lighted, so it would only be usable really during daylight hours. We still retain the 15-foot wide, heavily landscaped buffer on the north, south, and west sides. Now, during the public hearing today, you're going to hear a number of comments on the project, ranging from, one, the project's objectives as set forth in the EIR, to the claim that there is a wall and high berms around the project, to claims regarding draining conditions on Eckerman Road, to the use of Eckerman Road as an EVA route, to the impact on schools, and finally to the claim that no changes to the Granite Bay Community Plan should be made since the update to the Community Plan was approved only 4 years ago. I'd like to briefly review each of these issues. First, there have been a number of comments made on the draft EIR about our objectives, which the final EIR correctly notes that any project objectives are the applicant's objectives, not anyone else's, and whether it reflect why the applicant has proposed the project that is then analyzed in the EIR. Whether someone agrees or not with our objectives, the project objectives, is simply irrelevant to the EIR, the environmental analysis, as a matter of law under the California Environmental Quality Act. It's like saying, I bought a car, you tell your neighbor I bought a car for these reasons. They say, no, I disagree with you. You bought it for this reason. It's irrelevant. These are the applicant's objectives. As for the perimeter treatment of the project, as George showed, the only wall and berm is the front there, adjacent to lots 1, 2, 55, and 56 for noise attenuation on the road. That's a 2-foot berm and a 6-foot wall. The rest of the site has a good neighbor wooden fence, just like you see on Annabelle Avenue. In terms of project drainage, again, the localized flooding issues on Eckerman has in part been caused by grading by local residents, including some who may speak before you today, and installation of drainage improvements by those same residents without adequate engineering and design. The proposed project will actually improve situations. So we weren't in a situation of just meeting county standards and saying you will not make it any worse. The idea and a major objective of this project from the very beginning was to improve the situation. So we show that in the 10, 25, and 100-year event, we will actually decrease flows to the adjacent Eckerman Road neighbors with our detention basin and also with the storm drain pipes storing some of the water and metering that water out during those storm events. So we actually improve the situation. It does not just stay as it is now. It was actually to improve that. As for the use of Eckerman Road as an EVA route, I think that's been covered. The staff report has done a very good job. You saw the letter from the South Placer Fire District. It's a non-issue. Again, the fire department has clearly said that Eckerman Road meets its requirements and meets the California Fire Code requirements to use as an EVA. And they have full rights to be able to use that as an emergency vehicle access, as they have for many, many years, decades, in fact, that road has been in place. Regarding schools, we thought it was interesting at the MAC. There was people had concern. One person got up and expressed a concern about your impact on schools. The Eureka Union School District has been facing declining enrollment for a number of years, even closing schools. Students from homes in this project will help the school district by adding elementary school students to the district to be able to help reverse that trend that's been going on for the past 7 or 8 years. As to the proposed change in the community plan, typically, and I found this in my 30 years of practice, every time you have a community plan update, whether it's in Placer County or anywhere in the region, the community plan update looks at changes in land use and changes in policies. That's the standard. That's the way the Granite Bay Community Plan started out. Residents didn't want land use looked at comprehensively in the context of the plan update, so it just looked at policies. At that time, both this commission, the Board of Supervisors clearly said, by not doing that, you will have individual projects come forward. Those individual projects, yes, will have to pay for the processing of their applications, do the environmental review. It will not be done as part of a community plan update, but those projects will come through one at a time rather than being looked at comprehensive as you've done in every single community plan update in Placer County. Again, that's where we end up. Here's where we are. In an area with a broad range of lot sizes, as the illustration showed, including the very lot sizes that we are proposing to you today, you have a proposed project located on the greater Sacramento region's north-south corridor roadway. It's Beltway between Interstate 80 and Highway 50. In essence, Sierra College Boulevard and Hazel Avenue to the south is an inland highway, a major transportation corridor that is exactly the type of roadway that the SACOG Blueprint Project looked at in terms of locating higher density land uses on infill properties where infrastructure is available and provide amenities such as on-site recreation facilities. And that is why, again, you have that letter. I believe you've all seen the letter from SACOG Chief Executive Officer Mike McKeever stating exactly that. Now, you may hear that today that there are other MDR, medium density residential properties in the Granite Bay Community Plan, and so Granite Bay doesn't need any more. The Granite Bay Community Plan, 3% of its land mass is at MDR. Well, what's interesting is when you look at the map, nearly all the MDR property that exists in the Granite Bay Community Plan, which goes back to 1989 originally, is developed. It's built on. There's almost none left. From a land use planning perspective, this project, again, at 3.4 units to the acre, located on a major transportation corridor, is sound land use planning. When you pair that with a longtime local resident and builder who is known for building quality projects in the area, we believe the decision before you today is actually a no-brainer. It's an easy one. Nearly 1,500 Granite Bay residents who have signed an interest page or a petition in support of the project would agree. Finally, and again, this is typically not a consideration for the Commission, but from an economic feasibility perspective, we've recently undertaken an analysis by a real estate economist to look at the project, given the very high infrastructure costs and development costs, to see if any of the alternatives would even be feasible to build, even if you approved one of them, whether you can even build that. Just looking at the combined off-site backbone infrastructure costs, which are $1.34 million, mostly for sewer, and that's whether the case is 16 lots, 40 lots, or 56 lots, you have that same cost. And on-site subdivision costs, if you look at those two together, those two categories, for a 16-lot subdivision, those costs are about $5.4 million. For the proposed project, it's about $7 million. The cost per unit, and again, not even looking at building any homes on the site, just looking at those two costs of off-site construction and on-site construction costs for the subdivision itself, it's nearly 3 times higher for the existing zoning alternative, the 16-lot, than the proposed project, and 50% higher than the proposed project for the 40-lot alternative. Again, to give you an idea, just the off-site costs for the sewer for the 16-lot subdivision would yield $71,000 per unit just on those lots. When you add in everything, you look at projected home construction costs, county fees, impact fees, both regional and county fees, and you look at it, what sales prices are in the Granite Bay marketplace right now, what you'd see is on the 16-lot subdivision, you'd lose over $500,000 a lot. And on the 40-lot subdivision, you'd lose about $54,000 a lot. Only the proposed project before you is economically feasible that could be built and brought to market, given those heavy infrastructure costs, which is why you haven't seen development in the island in a long time. That's the very reason, because you have these incredible off-site sewer costs. With that, our project team is here to answer any questions the Commission may have. We would ask that after the public hearing, if there are questions that have been directed to the project, we have the opportunity to get back up and answer any of those questions that may come up during the hearing. After the hearing is concluded and you've concluded your deliberations, we would ask that you support the staff recommendation, recommend approval of the project as it's been presented to you today and as conditioned by your staff in the 26 pages of conditions. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Is there any questions of Mr. Leduc at this time? If not, then we'll go to the public comment. At this time, I'd like to ask who would like to comment tonight. Today, we're going to have a 3-minute time limit. Okay, we have quite a few hands. Is there someone in the audience that can speak maybe to the majority of the issues that the rest of you that raise your hands might want to talk to? Is there a spokesman? Because it's my prerogative to give that person the same amount of time that Mr. LaDuca took, which is about 18 minutes, if they need that much. And that way, the other people, if they've already been answered or their question been asked, then it would move things along a little bit. Is there anyone in the audience that would be speaking for a group? Or you may have not organized ahead of time, but if there's someone that's got their thoughts together or have it written down, and hopefully the other people would like to, well, you'll still be able to speak, but go ahead. If somebody got up here and maybe you can state who you're representing, if you're representing more than just yourself, that would be helpful.
Yes, I'm Mariana Beckett. I'm going to hand out a petition, and it has 805 signatures on it.
Okay, I'll give it here to the city clerk. Well, yeah, we'll be about, if you need 15 minutes, fine. If not, that's okay too.
I don't plan to take 15 minutes.
Okay, well, thank you.
But I did want to clarify, because in the EIR, it said that there were 605 signatures, but at that time there were actually 745 that were submitted because they did not count the paper wet signatures that were submitted. Okay. And at this point, there are more than 200 comments included in that document. So I do want the EIR to be corrected in that there were a lot more. And these are people who were willing to sign that they do not approve of a rezone for this project. Not that they don't approve of development, but just they don't approve of the rezone and the general plan amendment. They were willing to give their address. They were not simply putting a like on electronic website like Facebook. So these are committed enough members of the community that cared enough about this issue to give all of their information and not just anonymously show interest based on pictures of a large park. And part of the reason that so many people wanted to sign this is because they do consider it a spot rezone. Mr. Rosasco referred to the community plan, and in that section, I think he said 3.11, there was the term contiguous properties. And if you look at the map, all of the contiguous properties that share actual fence lines with the park at Granite Bay are on acreage. None of them are less than an acre. Both north, south, east, and west, the fence lines that share borders with this property are on acreage. There was also that map showing the, whatever it was, 122 lots that are part of the Granite Bay Island. And several times today they've mentioned whatever 24-25% of those are in the density range that are closer to what the park at Granite Bay is proposing. None of them touch this property, and some of them were far enough away from the property to not even be notified of the hearings and that sort of thing. They weren't required because they weren't within the 300 feet. Obviously, a lot of them are in Roseville as you get outside of the Granite Bay Island. But if you think about it in terms of acreage, I haven't done the figures, but if we look back at that map, it looks more like maybe 10 or 15% of the lot acreage would actually fall into that category, not the 24-25%. And in terms of the petition that you have, 63 signatures came from along Annabelle and the Eckerman area, which is pretty remarkable since there actually aren't that many homes along in there. And 82 were from the Granite Bay Island as a total. And you heard earlier that there's 102 lots with homes existing on them already in that area. So there's pretty widespread sentiment against this spot rezone around that area. And then, of course, broader support on our side with the 805 signatures total. I would like to to alert you, for those who were not at the MAC meeting, that it was standing room only. There were people spilling out into the pavement. And at meetings like this that are in the middle of a workday, it's very difficult for a lot of folks who would like to come and would like to speak to be able to make it, because they actually, have to have other responsibilities in their work in order to be able to be homeowners. And so the MAC, I've been told, is kind of our venue for those who can't make it to these daytime workday meetings. And even at the MAC, they did have to cut off comments because there were so many, and there were so many against the project. And so I do ask that you honor what the MAC decided at that meeting, that it was, I'm sure, influenced by the amount of community members coming out and speaking very vehemently about how this does not fit with the neighbors around it. As for trying to say that there's a reason that would warrant overriding all of these people who are immediately impacted, I think that while the developer has their own objectives and their own reason for development, it is also your responsibility and part of your job to determine that there is a good enough reason to say we're willing to sacrifice the rights and the lifestyle of this community and these people, because there's something bigger and something more important that would benefit the community as a whole more. And that is why so many people commented on the developer's objectives and spoke about the objectives not being sufficient enough to warrant this kind of a change, really. The park is a 0.8 acre park. It is an open field. There are no play structures. There's no structures for sports. So in terms of trying to say that it is something very appealing that the community needs, or that people would feel welcome to go inside of a gated community to do their youth soccer practices, I think is a little bit, it's trying to get us to believe something that to me sounds a little bit outrageous, especially since it's within a 2-mile drive of so many parks, more than 200 acres of parks. We've got Maidu, we've got Hillsborough, Tree Lake. There's so many parks nearby. It's not like this is meeting a need that doesn't already exist. And in the same sense about the housing prices, all along it's been quoted to us that the prices of these homes is going to be somewhere in the median range for Granite Bay, which means it's not allowing people who could not otherwise afford to live in Granite Bay to move here. It's not bringing in families with their children who don't have other options to buy in Granite Bay, because it's within the price range that already exists. In terms of the final determinations that there's no significant impacts because everything's been mitigated away, I don't have time to go into each of them. So many of our comments and many other people's comments on the record have already explained a lot of our concern about that determination. But as an example, some of the logic that is used is along the lines of, yes, this will be consistent with the Granite Bay Community Plan and the zoning once the rezone is approved. And that's the kind of logic that would say, does lead float? Well, give me enough wood and I will show you that lead can float. It's not a logical argument. And it's not an argument that can bring you to the determination that, yes, this is consistent with the plan. Other kinds of logic are the earth tone paints and the 15-foot buffer make this to be considered as a rural neighborhood or give it a rural neighborhood feel. They didn't mention today, but that 15-foot buffer is within the fence line of the new neighbors. So new property owners or buyers that are coming to look at the park at Granite Bay and considering purchasing there, when they go in the backyard, what they're going to see is the 15 feet in the back as a part of their yard. There's an imaginary line. There's an easement, I guess, written into their deeds, but there's not specification of who is going to monitor that easement and who's going to force them to keep their dogs or their children or structures or anything off of it, or who's going to make sure that the owners who are responsible for the landscaping actually keep up with the landscaping. So the buffer that's supposed to make this feel like a rural neighborhood, to me, is a bit ridiculous. I haven't heard of something like this before. And other mitigations that are heavily dependent on are things like the traffic is mitigated because of the traffic developer fees, even though those fees are not necessarily earmarked toward traffic issues that are related to this project. And that basically, we don't have to talk too much about or we don't have to create permanent solutions, even though we already have failing traffic results at intersections, because the fees will mitigate that.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. So yes, please do not override the MAC and do not override the people who signed the petition.
Thank you. Who would like to be next? Okay, why don't you come up and state your name?
Chairman, if I could remind everybody, just there is a sign-in sheet, so when you do come up, please sign that before you're done. Thank you.
Keep your comments to maybe new information and keep it to 3 minutes if you would.
Can I get 5 minutes?
If we go 5 minutes for one, I think everyone else will want 5 minutes. Man, why don't you just do the 3 minutes and do it on other items that she didn't bring up?
I'll try. My name is Victor Beckett. Mr. Kochi, thank you very much for giving us a chance to express our deep concerns about this project. I want to make things simple. Your job here to volunteer to serve the community and listen to us. We're making things easier. We hand-delivered the petition of 800 signatures, people who don't want this project. So please listen to us and oppose this project. The other issue I want to talk about, the vision, the conflicting visions of community stakeholders like us and developers, some infill developers. Community stakeholders want the community layout to be protected through the zoning and the ordinance and the community plans. And we want, we have designated areas for high density, medium density, and for commercial use for very good reasons. We have put lots of factors in it. The traffic factors, the utilities, the local agency input. There's no reason to second guess that. And having a developer coming, looking at the map and say, oh, this lot is cheap, I will buy it. And I will twist some codes and bend some laws and get my way through the inner workings of the county and to get this rezoned so I can make lots of more profits. I will start from Mr. Laduca ended when saying, we cannot make $10 million on 16 homes. Well, that's not our problem. He's transferring his problem, even though we have massive staff and advisors on his in his company. When they bought, do you know what they bought? Do you know what they're doing? So when you buy it 4 years ago or 5 years ago, we had the prior knowledge and experience of what you're getting yourself into. If you come now and say, well, I can't make $10 million on it, you have to live, the neighbors have to live in the misery because we don't make money on it, then this is not our problem. This is not the county problem. We expect the staff to protect the neighbors and the community and enforce the code when somebody submits an application for 96 homes on a 16-acre that's zoned for 16 homes. They say, no, go. Go and find similar zoning that can be done similar lots. Similar zoning. If there's no medium zoning, well, find something that can be close, has some harmony with it. This has no harmony to the neighborhood. it has an extreme hurting impact on the immediate neighbors, encroaching our rights for right to farm, the right to privacy, the right to quiet neighborhood, and will mess up the Granite Bay Community Plan, will mess up the Placer County General Plan, and has no absolute value or benefit to the community. And actually, it has extreme negative impacts. I'll talk briefly about the negative impacts. One of them is traffic. I want to quote Ms. Stephanie Holloway. She's
Another
a senior.
minute, then you'll have to sit down. Go ahead. Just another minute or so.
Give me a couple of minutes, please.
Just a minute.
We've been working on this for 2 years.
Just 1 minute.
I want to quote Ms. Stephanie Holloway. She's present here in last January in the MAC meeting talking about similar projects, saying we cannot have an entrance on Sierra College because it's a busy road. Well, why do you want to approve 400% increase in density on Sierra College? That's making traffic very dangerous, and the first traffic accident that happens, Placer County will be liable for it because we've been warning the county for almost 2 years. Schools. My son is enrolled in Eureka School District in elementary school. Last year, his class size was 26. The average class size is 19. It's a 30% increase. This year, his class size is 22. So you have no shortage in enrollment. Substitute. There's a lot. 1 mile down on Hazel that has 26 acres that can have no problem with hydrology, no problem with second exit, and can accommodate such a project according to CEQA, and doesn't have to create all these problems for us. The other issue is about. Just 1 second. I'll look at my notes quickly.
Okay.
On Ackerman Road, I want to correct some information. The developer does not own the property that's on Ackerman Road. He has a first right of refusal that expired actually a couple of weeks ago. So even if he has this right extended, he does not own the road, and surely he does not own an easement on the road. If he had an easement to use it, prescriptive easement, it would be for one property, not for 56 homes. And again, I want to reiterate this. Fire trucks can drive through people's backyards. They can drive through my backyard, anybody's backyard. But there's a reason we created roads and we created easement. Especially for a big project like this, they have to have a plan. They have to have an easement, and because if there's a major fire happening in this subdivision, say a 12 feet wide private road will not save the residents who live there.
Okay, thank you.
So I'm asking for you, please, there is absolutely no reason to override the Granite Bay Community Plan, the codes, and to rezone or the Granite Bay General Plan and approve this egregious, extreme case of absolute greed.
Thank you, Victor.
Thank you very much.
Okay, yes, sir. Come on up.
Mr. Chairman, could we hear from the fire marshal about that road?
Yeah, we will. In 3 minutes, please.
I promise I'll be brief.
Good.
Thank you very much. My name is Jason Summer. I am the president of Granite Bay FC, which is the local community-based soccer program in Granite Bay, consisting of approximately 1,500 players and 120 teams. Prior to that, I was the field scheduler for Granite Bay FC, responsible for finding fields for our youth to practice on and to play their games. It was difficult and continues to be difficult, okay? I have had meetings with members, presidents, and other members of Granite Bay Lacrosse, Lakeside Little League, and other community-based organizations, and it is unanimous amongst us all. One thing that our community lacks are fields and spaces for the kids to play in. So I applaud the developer for considering putting in this small park for our kids to play in, because it is needed. And I would hope that this commission would consider, when other applicants come before them trying to put in developments, to also make sure that they include parks for our youth, because there are not enough parks in our area to facilitate all of the sports. Soccer is pretty much a year-round sport now. Lacrosse is a year-round sport. Baseball is a year-round sport. So we, as a soccer program, only have access to certain fields during what they call our peak season. Our shoulder season would be baseball's peak season and lacrosse's peak season. So there aren't enough fields in our community and parks in our community for all of our youth to play in throughout the year. Okay, so Granite Bay FC certainly supports this project as it is proposed, and we would ask that you support it as well.
Could you sign in there if you would?
I absolutely
Thank
will.
you. Who would like to make a comment? Come on up, sir.
My name is Karanjit Basra. I'm the property owner next to these lots, 55, 54, 53, all the way to the back.
Okay.
Thank you, Jason, for bringing this issue about, we need the playground for the kids, and he's doing a wonderful job. I have a very simple, actually, offer right now. If you just, follow the rules of the zoning and let it be the 1 acre lot, I will give 1 acre land free of cost to the county at the back of my property. I have a 2.5 acre lot. I will give 1 acre lot to the county free of cost. Just develop it. Just shut this thing down. Thank you. So the issues are pretty much same. You have heard it again and again. And I'm asking the same question, we've been asking for the last 2 years. 3 years ago, I'm a Granite Bay resident for more than 10 years now. I'm a physician at Sutter Roseville Medical Center. I would, made some positive contribution. I'm very blessed to be living in this county and feel very good about the about my county. So 3 years ago, when we thought about let's find a bigger home, I came to the same county. I asked them the same question. I said, my family and my kids, they're looking for a different lifestyle. We want a bigger property. And I was concerned. I said, what will happen to the lot next? So everybody said, this is a zone for 1 acre lot. Nobody can build it less than 1 acre. And here we are. Since the time I bought it, I've been coming to these meetings, rescheduling my patient, middle of the day, coming to the planning meeting. So county should be the one who should be protecting a resident like us. I bought this property based on their commitment.
One more minute. Go ahead.
So the questions are the same. Traffic, for example, my entrance is right on the Sierra College. So now I have some deacceleration lane, some acceleration lane. So I don't know. So I'm just waiting for an accident to happen so that I can come back and blame the county. This is what you did to me. So you are putting like a 4 times more home next to my property. So think about it. I was supposed to have like 2 homes next to my property. That's what I was told, like 2.3 acre, let's say three homes. Now I'm looking at 11 more homes. Quickly about the water drainage. So they were telling about this, it will be 5 feet higher now. So all the water coming from the Annabella going through Paul's property goes through my property. So there's a natural flow for hundreds of years. Now they are raising it more than 5 feet. I don't know where the water is going. Anyway, please respect the MAC. Please protect us. It's in your hand. Thank you.
Gentleman in the back there.
How we doing? My name is Dallas Sartz. I was born and raised in Granite Bay. I went to Granite Bay High School, went to Oak Hills, went to Ridgeview, went to Cabot. Absolutely love the community. I currently am a coach at the high school. I've been doing it for the past 5 years, going on 6 years. I do not currently live in Granite Bay because home prices are just very outrageous. I have a 4-year-old daughter that is not going to be in the school district that I attended. I've developed a very close relationship with the teachers and the parents and the coaches in the community. it would be a huge thing for me to be able to have my daughter attend the same schools that I went to, interact with the same teachers that I interacted with, be coached by the same coaches that I've been coached by. But it's just very tough to buy a home in the Granite Bay School District. People are talking about the median prices of the homes in Granite Bay, but those homes are also outdated. Shake roofs will cost you 30, 40 grand. Updating that kitchen, doing everything you need to do to an outdated home can cost you anywhere from $50,000 to $100,000. I had a great experience in Granite Bay. I was the first full graduating class there. I saw the community build up and rally around everybody, and it really started to unfold as a great community. But it's actually declining a little bit. Sporting events aren't as popular. The enrollment for the younger kids is declining. I think it'd be a great project. It'd bring a lot of young families in. We don't have a lot of young families in Granite Bay anymore. I think it'd be a tremendous asset for the community, for the high school, for the elementary school, for the junior highs, for everything alike, that we'll be able to rally behind another wave of kids. I have a 3-year-old daughter, and she can't go to Granite Bay High School or can't go to elementary school where I grew up, with the same experiences in the wonderful community that I had. That all kids should be able to be a part of. Granite Bay is a wonderful, wonderful city, and everybody should be able to have an experience like that. You should be able to go where you want to go and go to a school you want to go to, not have to go to a different place because you can't get into a school. I approved this project, and I know that I don't know the number, like 2,000 people approved it also, and I'm definitely one of those.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
You sign in too? It would be like that gentleman in the white shirt here, I guess.
My name's Bill Coyle, 28-year resident in Granite Bay. I live in Tree Lake Village, not far from the project. I'm speaking in support of the project. I think it's a high-quality development. As Mr. Sart said, we're in need of more housing options in Granite Bay with the declining numbers of students at our schools and using the parks. We need this housing. We're not out in the boonies anymore. This is right near the intersection of Douglas and Sierra College. Right on Sierra College, this is an appropriate density for filtering traffic right onto Sierra College. I hope you vote in favor.
Okay, could you sign your, okay. Thank you. The lady, I think the lady in the purple? Yeah. I couldn't see your face, so I just saw your arm, and I said, geez, I didn't want to make a mistake there. I thought it was a lady.
Hi, my name is Sue Harder, and I live in Granite Bay. I used to live in Johnson Ranch, which is on the one side of the project, and moved away to Texas, moved back to Granite Bay because love the area. And I have to tell you, as far as schools, there are plenty of homes in Roseville that go to Granite Bay High, so it's not like you have to live in Granite Bay to go to the Granite Bay schools. And housing is much more affordable on this side of Sierra College to this side of Sierra College, so there's plenty of places to live. I'm glad the doctor is giving his spot of land because that takes care of the little problem that we said that we had that gives you the place that you need for your little sports. Mostly I'm concerned with the traffic, though. When you talk about weaving in and out of traffic, that's exactly what that's going to be. I pull in this way. People are pulling in this way off of East Roseville Parkway to get into the CVS right there on the corner where this thing is set to be built. And I'm telling you, I've seen accidents. People are are weaving in and out. And if people obeyed the law and went the speed limit, which is high in that area on Sierra College, you might not have to think about this. But I'm telling you, you are going to have rear ends. You're going to have people gunning to get in, gunning to get out because traffic, there's a lot of it, and it is going fast. So I'm telling you, for a safety perspective, just for that reason alone. The MAC people said no. the zoning says no. They're asking for rezoning, they're asking for exceptions, they're asking for changes for an area. There's plenty of places for this development. Go to West Roseville. Natomas would welcome you. Do it. I would live there. I would. Not where it is. It's not supposed to be there.
Thank you.
Good afternoon. Thank you. My name is Michael Murphy. Live in Granite Bay. Been a resident there for 13 and a half years. Work in commercial real estate, so I know the area quite well and don't need to talk about the affordability aspect. Other people have talked about that. Don't need to talk about, the positive about the schools, so I think those things have already been said. This project is smart planning. I mean, it's an infill project. It's on a major thoroughfare. That's what development's about these days, is smart planning, using what you got. Don't start building houses out in the West Roseville that take up farmland and take up open space. This is the type of development that's needed in this area, or needed in the Granite Bay area. So I think we want to be able to build something that's going to be quality. It's a Granite Bay, which this is. You look at Tree Lake, that's a great project. It's nice. It's very comparable to that. So I think for those reasons, it's a great project to move forward. The last thing I'd like to say is, we have a lot of people here that are positive or want the project, and I'm sure they'll be all speaking. But as a matter of fact, how many people here?
I hope not.
That are for the project? Are there people here? So we have, it looks like about half the people here are for the project. So I think it's.
Hope you're wrong. I hope they all don't all want to speak.
Well, anyway,
hope you're speaking for some of them anyway.
I'm here for smart development, infill development, and I think it's a smart idea to do this project. So thank you very much for your time.
You sign in, and I think the gentleman in the blue shirt there has had his hand up, probably getting tired. And we'll get to most, if not all of you, but if somebody else has been saying some of the same things, both either for or against, we should, just say yes or something. Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. My name is Mark Guzin. I'm a local resident and past president of the Eureka Schools Foundation. Eureka Schools Foundation helps raise private funding for the Eureka Schools district. And as was mentioned before, the district has been suffering declining enrollment in large part due to unaffordable housing for young families. We strongly believe that this project would help offset some of that declining enrollment by attracting young families. If you look at the reason that thousands of families move to Granite Bay, typically you'll hear schools as one of the primary reasons why that is. Our schools have been excellent historically, but the fiscal impact of declining enrollment threatens that going forward and threatens the very fabric of our community over the long haul. For that reason, anything that attracts younger families to come in to offset that declining enrollment, we find that those younger families that live in the district are more committed to being a part of the community, and that translates into not only them helping support fiscally, but also being more active in terms of volunteerism and contributing to the quality of life that really makes Granite Bay community a very special place. And so, again, we believe that this will attract young families. The demographics of those folks will contribute to the quality of education and the quality of life in Granite Bay.
Okay, thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Lady over here in the front, right here on the left, another purple. A lot of purples out there today. And then one in the back, that the lady in the light blue. You'll be next.
Good afternoon, I guess, now instead of morning. My name is Larissa Berry, and I've been in Granite Bay since 2006. The role of the Planning Commission is to uphold the goals and policies of both the Placer County General and Granite Bay Community Plans. The park project violates at least 4 Placer County General and 18 Granite Bay Community Plan goals and policies. We have been told that the project is needed because of lacking student population in Maidu. Using the Eureka Union School District student generation factor provided by Melody Gillespie, the Chief Business Officer for the Eureka District, the generation factor is 0.02467 students per household. Only 1.38 students will be generated for 56 homes versus 0.4 as zoned. At the state funding level of $100,000 per 13 students, these benefits are negligible and not worthy of a plan amendment and a rezone. At the high school level of 0.161 students per home will add 2.6 as planned, or 9 with a rezone. The Roseville Joint Unified High School District stated the Granite Bay High School is impacted and additional students could not be accommodated. According to their master plan, students will be redistributed to underutilized schools. 5 additional, with a potential 6th high school, are planned for the West Roseville Antelope area. There is to be no expansion of Granite Bay High School. My son's AP class has 40-plus students. Many students are sitting on the floor, and they were asked to voluntarily drop the class. Additional students are not necessary. CEQA Guidelines 15126.6 and 21002.1 state that an EIR shall describe a range of reasonable alternatives to the project which can achieve the project objectives and substantially lessen the project impacts. The draft EIR identified the approved zoning as 16 homes as the preferred and least impactful. The evaluation of alternatives should include a no-build option and may suggest an alternate location. There are 2 adjacent parcels on Sierra College equaling 20-plus acres. One is zoned medium-density residential and the other for 1-acre homes. In 2 phases, these parcels accommodate the park proposal and accomplish its objectives with less impact and more closely aligned to the project's design. Of the homes on the market today, approximately 30% are in the $550,000 to $150,000 price range. Grayhawk 3, recently approved, will add 72 homes in this price range, almost doubling the 101 homes built since 2012, increasing the number of homes available by 50%. Or increasing the number of homes to 50% of those on the market today. There is no overriding need which justifies a rezone, plan amendment, and variance. We respectfully request that you deny the proposal as project as proposed and approve the plan as zoned for 16 homes, along with the free park, or build it at an alternate site. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, you'll be next. This lady here, I said in the light blue sweater, and then gentleman there, and then there's one over here.
Hello, my name is Elaine Sacco. I live on Ackerman Road. And let me see. Above all, I am concerned the way the DEIR repeatedly refuses to acknowledge multiple important issues while an attempt to offer mitigating solutions are unsatisfactory and continue to fall short of the requirements set forth in the Granite Bay Community Plan, the Placer Community General Plan, and the California Environmental Quality Act. I would also like to add that all these people that are for this project don't live anywhere near it and won't be impacted except for the traffic. And I hate to bring up the traffic again, but it's a major, major consideration. It takes minutes to get out at prime time traffic. 5 o'clock. Have any of you ever driven this project and looked at it before you vote on it?
I actually did twice
Okay.
in January, and I just drove there about 2 or 3 days ago. I mean, I didn't get on the property. I drove down Annabelle and then Ackerman, and I looked, and I went on Haskell too, all the way down until it says private property, and I stopped there and looked around, but
Well, we're not against development. We're just against this development. It doesn't fit with the plan, the community plan. We're residential agriculture now, and this is not. This is just a monstrosity. It's all about the greed, and I would just respectfully ask you to just stick to the plan. We're not against the development of this property, but it's not our fault that the developer might not make as much money as he wanted to. And in closing, I just like to say, can you seriously consider this EIR when it is so clearly flawed, inaccurate, in several instances, is in violation of the CEQA? Thank you.
Gentleman here, and then lady over here. Gentleman, and you.
My name is Grant Keeney. I'm a 17-year resident of Granite Bay. I do live about a mile away, right across Sierra College Boulevard. So I drive by this every day, a couple times a day. I respectfully disagree with some of the comments here that traffic is going to be, extremely impacted and there's potential risk to the county and to the community. I disagree with that. I travel at all times throughout the day on weekends. So that being said, also my main point is that we've heard from other people that this is a smart infill planning. My travels take me all around communities throughout California. I've been to Colorado, Atlanta, the southeast. This is a mirror image of what's happening in those burgeoning communities. It is smart planning, it's medium density, it provides variety with the Granite Bay community, so we're not left with many mansions and apartments. This I think gives the community a nice variety, and frankly, I think as the years go by, we're going to see more and more of these. This is located on Sierra College Boulevard. Okay, to the best of my knowledge, this has been a major connecting thoroughfare between Interstate 80 and Highway 50 for God knows how long. So I think it's, if I bought a piece of property there 7 years ago thinking that there would not be any future development on this infill parcel, I would be a little bit naive. I think this is smart planning, it's good density, it's excellent design. And yes, it is an amendment to the community plan, but community plans are, in my belief, are living, breathing documents meant to be amended and meant to reflect the social, economic, and cultural changes of the greater community. This is infill. It's smart. It's strategic. I don't think it's going to have the negative impacts that the greater community may be concerned with. It may have a negative impact for those immediately surrounding it, but I think the not in my backyard crowd makes up some good arguments. However, for the greater good and the future planning and the smart infill location that this is, I'm all in favor of it, and I live half a mile from here.
Okay,
thank you,
sir. Lady over here.
Sign in.
Oh, could sign in? Could you sign in? Could you sign in? I'm sorry. Yeah.
Joanne Jackson, resident of Granite Bay for 18 years. I just have a couple of the things I heard is when they go to 24% of the properties are like this, that math to me means 76% are not like this, and nobody put that in any sort of sentence. So that's way more than half. They talked about the city of Roseville's properties being way less of properties, and that's why we live in Granite Bay, not the city of Roseville. So they're referring to surrounding properties in the city of Roseville, but there is a delineation of where Roseville ends and Granite Bay begins. The other thing is, the argument I get from the lawyer is we should be happy that this developer decided that 96 wasn't good and 84 wasn't good, but he can make the right amount of money at 54. And that's his argument is, this is the right amount of money that we can make, and you should be glad that we lessened this project from 96 to 54. And I just don't see that argument as being valid. The practice field argument is that's the Parks Department problem, not the housing and development people's problem to give parks to our residents. So if there's parks all around that don't have practice fields, perhaps they should do that in their responsibility to get them practice if that's the need. And my last thing is, Mr. Sart said and this other gentleman said about the affordability factor. Granite Bay has a high, yes, they do. How much are these houses going to be? He's saying they're not going to be 300. I don't know if anybody said a price for these houses, but if they're going to be like Greyhawk 3 or Greyhawk 2, they're above 600. Greyhawk 2 is now $780 to $850 each. That was a little infilled project. That's what's going to happen here for anybody to make money. So when we talk about the affordability factor of young families living here, I just doubt that. Okay. So that's just my...
Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll start with her over here on this side. your hand? And then the lady in the red, and a couple more, and then maybe we'll have to kind of close it up. We'll be here all afternoon unless there's a new comment.
Hi, I'm Chris Johnson. I'll try and keep it short and just hit things we haven't talked about. I've lived in Granite Bay for 28 years. Before that, I lived in the Midwest. I worked for city planning and redevelopment for the East Chicago Department of Planning, and I do understand some of the stuff that's going on. I really want to focus on the whole concept of, okay, this thing is being compared to these 24 houses up here and the 24%. Those were built way before there ever was a community plan. So continuing to reference that and saying, oh, yes, it's all compatible, I think that's a fallacy. The other thing is those are not contiguous properties to this one. The second point I want to make is that these community plan updates, we just heard, oh, yeah, we're going to do them one by one by one. And your schedule already shows that. You've got a couple coming up next month. So I'm just asking you, you're making land use decisions here. Once you cut these parcels up and you disturb the ag lands and all this other kind of stuff, there's no putting them back. So you need to be very careful about what you do here and do what's consistent with the plan. Thank you.
Thank you. Lady, I think in red, were you, no, you already,
You open the doors, it's a long walk up here.
they opened up the room to make it bigger.
Oh, it's a long way back there.
That's why it's long.
My name's Sandy Harris, and I've lived in Granite Bay since 1977. And I'm so glad all these people like Granite Bay because we are some of the original people who worked on the original Granite Bay Community Plan and developed a community that they like to live in now. The EIR on this project starts out by saying, well, it doesn't fit the community plan, but once we get all these entitlements, it'll fit. That's crazy to a lot of us. The EIR states that this spot zoning could be growth-inducing, and it definitely can. The EIR states that residents surrounding the large open parcel should have assumed it would be developed. Actually, they did. They checked it out, and they assumed it would follow the zoning that's placed on it. Unclear how the proposed mitigation 15-foot buffer is going to help anybody. As Mariana said, it's behind the fence, and the property owners are going to be responsible for maintaining it. And I don't think any homeowner association is going to be able to ensure that that condition is going to be enforced. I'm going to skip a lot of this because I'm turning in a detailed letter. The EIR states that the building materials and 15-foot landscape buffer inside the walled development will mitigate the perceived density of the project massing. The perceived massing is actual. It's not a figment of one's imagination. Screening the project with a 6-foot-high fencing so it won't be perceived by the public as high density assumes that you're dealing with a low-mentality public. I mean, you're going to be seeing, I don't know what. The proposed park is going to be a burden on the homeowners and too small to be of much use to the public. The gates are going to close at dusk. Who's going to schedule the park use? I know the county has all kinds of rigmaroles you have to go through. Who's liable? What would the cost of insurance be? Who will be responsible for monitoring the use? Conflict with the homeowners and public parking on their streets. Will the homeowners eventually vote to do away with this park? Because they have that right to do that if they get enough people to support it. They can vote to do away with that park. The alternative, too, has the least environmental impacts. The EIR fails to offer compelling reasons to grant the entitlements sought. The proposed project's not superior to the current zoning on the property and creates more problems than can be mitigated satisfactorily. This isn't a NIMBY issue, as one person brought up. This is a community issue. We are a community as a whole, and it's a nice community, and that's why people want to live there. And doing this kind of spot zoning and impacting on the neighbors of this project, I'm not close to it. But I have 2.5 acres, and if I had 8 parcels on my property line, my lifestyle would be so changed it would be ridiculous. And I think it's a terrible imposition on those people.
Lady in red, your red sweater.
Hi, my name is Margot Birch. I am a parent in the Eureka Union School District. I do support this project. I've been excited since I heard about it 2 years ago. I have 4 children in the district, and I do that Sierra College loop. I could probably multiple times a day. I could probably throw a rock at the development from my house. And I think one of the things that, again, I've lived in Granite Bay for 15 years, and I think that the most important thing that I've loved about Granite Bay is our sense of community, our sense that we do things together to make this community great, and part of that is change. And we, at some point we have to look at the big picture. And for anybody who thinks that this enrollment or our enrollment isn't declining, is not involved in the school district. I'm a past member of the Eureka Schools Foundation. I'm actively involved in the school district. And many people may not know that we have over 500 students from outside our district. And we can accommodate them because we can't get them from within our district. So I think that's something that is important that people need to understand. And so I think this is a great project. And, big picture, we need to work together to make the change, and I hope that you approve this proposal.
Okay, thank you. This gentleman here in the back with that one. There you go. Couldn't quite tell what color your shirt was there. Gray.
Hi, my name is Paul Novaresi. I live on Eckerman Road. I have the 4-acre parcel adjacent to that. I bought here 15 years ago under the assumption that this was going to be land that was going to be agricultural. I came up from Southern California for that reason. I wanted my kids to have a better lifestyle than living in a massive amount of traffic, smog, all that stuff. So we moved up here for that reason. It just kind of disappoints me in the sense that we have developers that are trying to get rich on just on people in general. These houses are going to be in the $700,000 range more than likely, and probably go up from there. In an area that it has low, our cost of housing in our island is way less than that. There's quite a few houses available in the island itself that are under $300,000. In fact, I just purchased one. So we're just kind of concerned that you've got a developer that's just trying to get rich off of everybody in the area and not take into consideration that we have agricultural land. I have cows, I have goats, I have chickens, I have turkeys. I have the right to burn. So I can burn whenever, when it's a burn time, I can burn. And so then we're going to have all these people now, it's like an airport thing. We're going to have 56 homes complaining about my chickens, my cow smell, my goat smell, my fire burning. All that's going to go away because as soon as these people start complaining to code enforcement, I'm just going to have a nightmare of issues with code enforcement. It's just going to be ridiculous. The 24 homes that they keep talking about and everybody keeps bringing up were built prior to 1950, before any master plan community was available. So we kind of think there's only 24 homes, but if you look at the 102 or 122 acres that are there, all of them are there's 102 acres land. Everything's 1 acre or more in that area. There's only those 24 homes that aren't. And they were built prior to 1950. So it doesn't make any sense that everybody keeps taking that as that's what he's trying to do. Roseville is a completely different city. It's not anything to do with our county. So them saying, oh, it's kind of, we're not in Roseville. That's why we bought where we bought. So we just don't believe that this should ever go through, and we should keep to the master plan, community plan for Granite Bay.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Oh, yeah, well, sign in, please. Ooh, sorry. I keep forgetting to get you when I let you go all the way back. Lady that's standing up.
My name is Allison Sims. I live in the Courtside development across from Sierra College. And I would just like to invite any family that needs affordable housing to come to my neighborhood. This is not going to provide affordable housing for young families. If they are, they've got a better job than me. But there's a lot of homes within the Johnson Ranch community that are part of Eureka School District and Granite Bay High School, and their children can go to the same schools that my daughter went to and have affordable housing. This is not it. Please, I'm here. I live on the other side, and I'm here in support of my Granite Bay neighbors who bought in that area with the pretty much the assurance, because they did their homework before they invested. This is their investment, and I honor that, and I honor my neighbors in my community. Please honor them with what is in the
general plan.
What's in the general plan. This is why we have you. So thank you.
I'd like to ask at this time, because we're going to have to start limiting debate here. Oh, you signed in. There you remember by yourself. How about that? How many more that want to speak? Just a couple? There's 1, 2, 3, 4. Okay, the 4 or 5 that raised their hands, that's it. Okay, gentlemen here. Because I think we're starting to hear repeats for sure.
Yeah, good afternoon. My name is Jeff Demure. I'm a resident and a homeowner of Granite Bay. I'm also a business owner. I employ 30 people in Granite Bay. Most of those people are young people. But I'm here more to talk about, because I think the young people, first-time home buyer, affordability, not wanting to buy a 30 or 40-year-old house in Granite Bay, but a new house in Granite Bay has been well discussed today. So I'm here to talk about some of my residents that live on 1-acre homes that bought their homes 30 years ago in Granite Bay, and now they are faced with life choices now that they're in their 70s and 80s. I want to stay in my community. I want to go to the same church. I want to participate in the shopping. I want to participate in some of the school activities and volunteer. I need to get out of my house that's 4,000 square feet, that's over $1 million. Where am I going to go? Where am I going to go as a 70 or 80-year-old resident of Granite Bay? These single-family homes in this neighborhood, I'm here to talk about those people, the older adults in our community that I want part of my community so that my 4 children can see the diversity and the vibrance of having older people living and coexisting within their neighborhood, going to their schools, volunteering at the library, and going to the games, so that those folks don't have to move to Roseville. So to those residents that are now 80 years old, I'm here to talk about them. And these single-family homes will be able to accommodate folks that want to stay in the neighborhood, that want to be in Granite Bay, that don't want to go to Roseville. So this diversity that we're talking about so much, that's been kind of skewed today towards first-time buyers, I'm here to say that, that there's a lot of older adults that would be well represented in terms of buying within this community, and they want to be here. It's good for them. They don't have to drive real far. They're closer to the hospital. They're closer to their doctor. They're closer to the shops. These are the people that I'm most interested in. This diversity that made Granite Bay great cannot be dumbed out of Granite Bay by those special interests that are concerned about preserving their current lifestyle. But looking towards the future into something, if you look at that macro map, you will see that this is more consistent with where Granite Bay needs to be. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. Let's see, we had a lady back here, the one, yeah, right, you. And the one behind, and then Mr. Gerbedian over here will be last, I think. We'll have 3 more, that's it.
Thank you. Shannon Quinn. I actually had not intended to speak, but I did want to point out to you, I would like to draw your attention to Appendix A or E, page 8 and 9. That was prepared by Wood Rogers, and it speaks to the significant and unavoidable impact until mitigation is implemented, and that's in relation to Annabelle and Sierra College. Both the existing project and Cumulative Plus project has not been mitigated. And they tried to gloss it over and say, well, it doesn't matter because it's in the city of Roseville, and the city of Roseville has a 70% low C policy rating, but that's for signalized intersections, not unsignalized. If this roadway was in Granite Bay, we would have proper mitigation. It's not enough to put it off on Roseville and say because their policy is different, even though we're not interpreting their policy correctly. So it's a big failure in the EIR to not consider the proper mitigation. So I'd like that done before you approve it. I would think that consideration should be made. And secondarily, I kind of, when I hear all this, how do we have decreasing school enrollment but increasing park need? Thank you.
The one lady back here, yeah, lady, and then Mr. Grabinian will be last. I think we'll do that.
Hello, my name is Nicole Chappelle, and I lived in this Granite Bay Island community for 10 years, and I own one of the contiguous properties to this development, and I'm a proponent for the development. This area in this island, it doesn't really fit in its area. It's kind of its own little zone, thus it's called the island. I moved away personally from the area. I still own a property there, but I moved because I wanted more rural area. I live in Auburn now on 11 acres. To me, this area, I was one of two people of the contiguous properties that actually owned livestock. Nobody else in those 122, there's less than a half a dozen people who actually have livestock, and none of that's going to get taken away by this property being developed because everybody else's parcels will still remain, whatever their zone. It doesn't change anyone's zoning that touches this project. It only rezones the actual project itself. As a resident there, when I did have livestock, I had concerns with people coming and catching my horses while I wasn't home. And, I made a choice that you have people who watch out for that. And there's good neighborhood people in this community that look out for each other. This community itself, it doesn't let people have access to go walking through where these contiguous property is. Essentially, this proposed site is its own island in itself. It's a development where it's got a gate entrance. Yes, it'll be open during the day. It'll let people have access to a variety of restaurants and stores and places that they can walk to, let alone schools. You can walk in distance to all of those places. I think it's a good development. Myself, being more of a rural person, I don't consider this area rural. It's in the middle of the city. It's kind of like Orangeville, older community. I believe that this project will revitalize that area, and I support it. Thanks.
Thank you. Mr. Grabinian. 3 minutes, Mr. Grabinian. Everybody else has been held to 3 minutes, right?
Thank you. I'll be as quick as I can. Michael Garabedian for the Placer Group of the Sierra Club. First of all, about the consultant and Mr. Marcus talking about arguing CEQA law before you, I'm sure you don't have to be reminded by the staff that you have discretion to act on behalf of the public health, safety, and welfare, constitutional authority from the police power, and don't be distracted by that. There's no question here that you are being asked to reduce the property rights of the people who are complaining about this because you are being asked to destabilize their neighborhood. Now, don't mistake that. Now, climate change is the Sierra Club's #1 goal, and here we have the same old development with transportation. There are key issues here that need to be addressed. When I did the same round Tuesday around 7 in the evening, it is not a good place to be turning left or making U-turns or getting onto Annabelle or turning south again and going into Haskell. That is a problem. I want to primarily address secondary homes. The county has an extremely liberal secondary home. Of course, what's the purpose? To help provide affordable housing, supposedly. Well, the secondary homes on here, this is 84 lots. We need to be clear. That's 84 also secondary home potential, doubling the number of units on this land. It really needs to be addressed. The zoning administrator who addressed you at the beginning, he recently approved 2 variances for secondary homes on 3-acre parcels. And what do those variances do? they allow homes that have are least disturbing to the 3-acre people who want to put a secondary home in the house, maximum neighbor impact on the neighbors, maximum maybe on the bordering neighbors and community character, which this group has addressed as a concern but hasn't done anything to make sure community character is protected for secondary homes. So this is a critical Sierra Club issue, an issue for this county. We are not just talking about 84, we're talking about many more potential units on this. You should definitely put this over and give the community and staff and everybody time to redo this, fix the EIR before you go ahead. Thank you.
Okay, I'm closing the public.
I would also like to say you should not keep any from speaking. Under the Brown Act, they have a right to talk, but they may respect your wish not to talk. But you should, if anybody wants to speak, you should allow that.
I do have that discretion. We'll have our county council address that. This is the last gentleman right here to speak.
Good afternoon. My name is Stan Sacco. I live on Eckerman Road. And first and foremost, along Eckerman, we were informed that the road does not meet minimum requirements for health and safety. And nothing in the Placer County Code or the California Fire Code allows the South Placer Fire District to waive any requirements, regardless of whether or not we have a letter. On a bigger picture, one of the biggest problems I think I've had with this whole thing is just that we, the people, are supposed to have representation, and we have representatives, but no representation. We have forums where we have the ability to speak, a forum to speak, and yet everything that has come up, everybody just kind of goes, oh, well, we can just mitigate that away. Well, for those of you who think you can mitigate something to less than significant, virtually every homeowner who lives around this property is here today. It's significant. These are major issues to us, every single one of them. And when we go to, for example, the MAC meeting, MAC voted, I think Marianne told you it was a 3-2 vote. Well, one of the people who votes on that, who actually voted for this, one of the two, is a broker in the area. That is a biased opinion. They have future financial incentives, as with a lot of the people here who are in support of this project. There are developers here. There are land use owners. Nicole owns that damn parcel. Of course she wants this thing to go through. The other problem that I have is, from the whole process has always been presented to us as a top-down thing. It's like, you guys can voice whatever you want, but we're going to shove it down your throats. And it's come to that. It just seems like every single thing. When I look at the EIR, we talked about this in the NOP, and we came here and talked to you about that. I went through that thing, and the EIR was a joke, in my opinion. It goes through all these separate categories, and it talks about consistent, consistent, consistent. I went through just the Granite Bay Community Plan, and this is the list of stuff that I found where it's in direct violation, totally contradictory to that. And yet, when I come here and I read staff reports, staff supports all this. That is just wrong. This is the kind of crap third-world dictatorships do. Top-down is wrong. When Marcus was talking about, the fact that, the redoing the planning, the community plan and everything allows for spot zoning. And spot zoning is fine, in my opinion, as far as they're sticking to current zoning. Current zoning allows 16 units. If there were 16 houses proposed for this, half of us wouldn't be here. It's not an issue. I actually have a recommendation. If they want to take like half of that, put 16 homes, and then dedicate the rest to the park, it'd be fine. Thanks for your time.
Thank you. At this time, sit down, Mr. I want someone from the fire district that's here. Is there a representative from the fire district? The chief. Okay, I'd like to have your comments on the EVA and that whole issue on that Eckerman Road.
Okay, my name is Mike Ritter, and I'm a division chief for South Placer Fire District.
Okay.
And first of all, I'd like to start by saying that South Placer Fire District's position does not support nor oppose any projects.
Right, we just want the particulars on the EVA and the access.
So
to the
the
road.
EVA in this development does meet code. It meets the intent of the code, and it is consistent with other developments in Granite Bay. There's a development off of Fuller Road behind Granite Bay Shopping Center. It has a similar court at the end of the development with a 20-foot gate that goes out to an unimproved road, Irish Road, and that goes out to Douglas Boulevard. It's exactly the same as this. this subdivision does provide the access to this subdivision through Eckerman Road, which we currently use as an access. And it's not 20 feet like the new code, but Eckerman Road was built prior to the new code, and the code cycles are every 3 years. So every time a code cycle comes out, you don't have to retrofit every existing road to meet that code. There's nothing in the code that requires this development to improve Eckerman Road to Annabelle. It meets the code.
Okay. And the fire department's happy with that EVA and the access to it?
We are happy with it. One other comment I'd like to say is how you decide whether or not a secondary EVA is even required is by the measurements of the overall dimensions diagonally from the project. And then if the secondary access was going to be on the same road, i.e. Sierra College Boulevard, then it would have to be no less than half that overall dimension. And so this subdivision does not meet that requirement, so therefore it cannot have a secondary access onto Sierra College. So it's required to have an access off of the backside of the subdivision. But that code also has exceptions to that. The code allows for exceptions and trade-offs. And there are 2 exceptions to that code, and one of them addresses existing subdivisions or developments that have a single access to that development, and it says that no additional dwelling shall be, and I'm paraphrasing here,
sure.
That the number of dwellings should not be increased without a secondary EVA unless that development will in the future connect to other developments. So there's one exception. The other exception is if every residential home in that development has a residential fire sprinkler throughout the building, and these do. So there are many safety features built in. This 20-foot access gate that they're going to provide meets the intent of the code to keep the public safe, and South Placer Fire approves it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, at this time I will, is there any question for the division chief? Okay. Okay, thank you. Mr. LaDuca, some brief comments, please.
Just to cover a few of the comments, Mr. Chairman, relative to the public comments came up. Could I get the slide that shows the it's sort of subdivision of the area of the it showed around the project site? I think there's I don't know if we showed one up there.
That one? No.
One comment I wanted to address is relative to lots adjacent. As you look directly across the northwest corner of the project, if you look at some of the lot sizes back there, so again, not on Annabelle Avenue, but directly across from where our right here. Again, you're looking at some of the other lots that are in this area. Some of those lots are very near the lot sizes we have. So this is not just looking at Annabelle. There were a total of 29 parcels, as George mentioned in his presentation. Those are some of the lot sizes you're looking at that are approximately the same size. So it's not just on Annabelle Avenue. I didn't want to leave you with the impression that that's what we were discussing. Relative to the comment about Eckerman Road, there was a comment made that the property owner currently does not own part of Eckerman Road. The property goes out to the center line of Eckerman Road. They absolutely own part of Eckerman Road. So that's I want to make sure you were clear on that the current property owner owns to the center line of Eckerman Road of this property. There is a current house that gains full access to Eckerman Road. We would no longer have a house on that property. That would be removed, the existing home, and we would no longer have access rights in terms of having full access. It would just be for EVA, and staff has conditioned the project such that the gate that's back there will be Opticon. No resident will have a gate code or the ability to open that gate with a key So again, that'll be for fire life safety. We were interested to hear Dr. Bazarai with his offer for his back part of his property. One thing he failed to mention is the back property is covered in wetlands, waters of the United States. So if he goes about trying to fill those, he may want to contact council because the Department of Justice would probably have an interesting perspective of that. But again, this is not just park land that's being dedicated. The park is being built, and that's the biggest issue facing not only the county parks department, but any parks department. It's not just that someone gives you a piece of land. You have to then go out there and build it and maintain it. There was a comment made that said that the HOA can just get rid of the park. One of the entitlements before you is a subdivision map. Subdivision map has conditions of approval. There's a condition that covers a whole variety of items that will be required in the CC&Rs. So if you look on condition 89, this is in the CC&Rs. Maintenance and operation of the 8-acre privately owned and maintained park constructed with the subdivision improvements shall be the responsibility of the homeowners association. They can't get rid of it. Amendments to the CC&Rs would go back through the county because the original CC&Rs have to go through the county. That's a requirement on every subdivision I've ever had before the county over these years. There was also a comment about the 15-foot buffer being in people's in the lots themselves. That's a situation you face on just about every project. There's wetland preservation easements that are in people's backyards that are the requirement to be maintained by the homeowners. There are sewer easements. This is in every single subdivision that comes forward has similar type easements that have in people's private lots. It's very common in Placer County. There was a comment about drainage from the north. If you look at the site, we are not going to be higher again near Dr. Bazarai. We will be lower, and one of the overland release points in the subdivision map is to take the drainage from his property, the historical drainage, and get it into our storm drain system, so it'll be addressing that issue relative to overland release. There was a comment made...
Marcus?
Yes.
Before you get too far away from it, I want to take you back one step.
Yeah.
To the 15-foot easement.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's an easement, I guess the property owner is required to maintain it.
Correct.
What if a property owner decides to cut down all the vegetation? And
well, the HOA has responsibilities. I mean, the HOA has a number of responsibilities in the subdivision. There's not just a park, there's private streets, there's all the other issues that go there in terms of the HOA, because they'll be in violation of the CC&Rs relative to that. So that's what you have in private subdivisions all over the county is, CC&Rs that restrict the ability of homeowners to do certain things in their lots.
Okay.
There was also just a comment made relative to the traffic, that there was an unmitigated impact. There was the letter that came into you yesterday quoted one page of the EIR. It didn't quote a page three pages later that talked about, as the EIR consultant, ESA, mentioned earlier, that again, at Annabelle and Sierra College Boulevard, you're looking at delays of 0.2 seconds, so less than a second delay, and then in the AM peak hour, 2.3 seconds. So again, less than, even though you're looking at City of Roseville standards, even under county standards, those are less than significant impact. So it's not just city standards. Those are also county standards, even though the intersection is governed by the City of Roseville. Just a couple other comments. Oh, there was a comment made that, well, we don't need any more houses that young families could potentially afford or be able to move into with certain amenities in those subdivisions, and quoting that there are houses in the island you could buy for $300,000. I don't know many young families with busy kids and everything else buy 60-year-old houses and try to renovate them from scratch. You're trying to buy energy-efficient homes. You're trying to buy a number of homes that have a number of current energy, whether it's windows or other energy-efficient appliances, what have you. They're not going in typically to buy those kind of houses because it takes a great deal of funds over and above your asking price relative to that. This will be able to provide new housing stock that meets those needs. And also, as was mentioned, for people that want to move down, it'll also provide that opportunity. I just have one more here. Relative to the last, one of the last comments that came in, I'm surprised that the Sierra Club would be against an infill project on a major corridor. Last time I checked, the Sierra Club was supportive of the SACOG Blueprint project, and as Mr. McKeever said, this meets directly on point with the SACOG Blueprint project, so very, very surprising to hear that. I'm sure some of Mr. Garabedian's colleagues will be very interested to hear as well. Finally, in terms of the making comments about MAC members, we try to stay away from personal attacks. There's lots of different MAC members. Heck, there's a MAC member that's a developer that didn't even sit on this and actually came out and said if he would have sat, he would have opposed it. So, I mean, the idea that someone would cast into aspersion a member of the MAC relative to what they do for a living and somehow, some way they're biased. I haven't found that when I've gone before the MAC, and I've been before the MAC on 19 projects in the last 28 years. With that, I don't have anything further, Mr. Chairman, unless there are questions from commission members.
Are there questions? Go ahead. Go ahead,
I've got a question. This may be a question more for the staff. If this was a 16-lot development, does the county now still allow that they can have their own septic systems on a 1 acre lot in this particular area, or are they required to tie into the municipal system?
No. My understanding is if you're within 600 feet of a sewer, regardless of regardless of the size of lot you are, you're required to tie in. So I believe they're within 600 feet. I believe they actually have a manhole that goes across here. They would have to tie in even at 16 lots.
So all the infrastructure work that would go with a 16 lot development is going to get stuck on that regardless. And that's a pretty onerous cost.
Yeah, that would be my understanding as well.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that?
Mr. Nader, that's entirely correct.
Right.
Okay. The $1.135 million offsite improvements is regardless of whether it's 16 or 56.
Okay, go ahead,
George?
Jeffrey.
There's building coverage maximum on these lots, correct? Percentage-wise?
40%.
Okay, and I know we're being asked to give a variance on a couple of them to allow for a little more coverage than that.
Right.
I guess my question goes back to the secondary residence. There's not much room to do anything additional once the house is built, is there?
No, not on these lots. I wouldn't think that you'd be able to put a secondary residence on here. I think when you put the main house on a 7,000 square foot lot, especially if it's single story.
You would be back for a variance for overcovering your lot or something.
Right. I mean, you have driveways, you have a little bit of a backyard.
Yeah, parking too.
Yeah, it's really not. I haven't looked at our secondary unit ordinance in a while. I'm not sure if it even goes below 10,000 square feet. I'd have to look to make sure you can do that. I haven't looked at that in a long time.
Thank you.
Yeah.
George, would you mind putting up the Google sort of map with a bigger picture of the area?
Marcus took my clicker.
Oh, he did.
Someone's going for it for me, though.
Is he stealing our clicker?
Thank you, Marcus.
I would never
Teacher's helper.
I think you're referring to
the big one.
Oh, I went by it. Where did it go? I'm sorry.
You were right next one. Next one.
No.
Wait.
That one.
No. Or it shows too old Auburn.
I cannot figure out where it went.
Wait, I saw it earlier.
I did too. Oh wait, here we go. I think are you talking about this one? Or are you talking about this one?
That one, yeah, the bigger one.
This one, yeah.
No,
right.
Back up.
The last one.
That one.
That one.
Okay.
Right. I don't necessarily have a question. It's just a perspective. This gives a broader perspective of that area.
It's pretty busy.
Yeah.
Didn't have a question? I thought you had a question.
I said I didn't have a question.
You made George go through that. Commissioners, is there any additional questions of staff? Okay, is there any discussion?
it seems to me that the main question is going to be, how much can we rely on zoning, and how much do we think we can just change it when we want to? And I think that's kind of the basis. Everything else is superfluous to that argument. When somebody buys something that allows for 5,000 homes to be built on it, and we say, no, we only want 4,000, the property rights say, no, zoning says 5,000, we want it. I've heard it eloquently expressed here before. Now we're doing just the opposite, in my opinion. We're changing that. So that's the main question that I see. So that's the discussion that I would have.
My 2 cents worth, obviously, if you're going to have this type of housing right off the major thoroughfare, major artery is where it should be. There's apartments right down the street. The other facilities, the shopping, the retail, the commercial is all there too. It is close to the schools, and the schools do have declining enrollment. There's a lot of inter-district transfers going on that can go away when new schools are built, and that will leave the Granite Bay area light on students. Change is hard to swallow. I agree with that. In fact, there's probably not anybody that lives in Granite Bay in a subdivision that's less than 20 years old that wasn't subject to the same discussion that was here today, regarding traffic and regarding the interference, if there is any, into the agricultural uses and what have you. I do agree with what's been said by several people here, in that the agricultural uses are going down. People do own the property for a buffer, but very few people with acreage truly use it for agricultural purposes. And it's getting fewer and fewer. And so, that would be my my portion of discussion.
Okay. Anyone else wish to offer any comments?
Just that, it seems that consistency through our government process is in question. And that's the main thing I think that brings most people out and gives them some pause to think that we're not following our own rules, so to speak.
Well, I'm not sure that's quite true.
Well, you may not, but I do.
No, I know. I'm just saying that there's been some comments that made today, and I'm not an EIR expert. I've read certain number of EIRs, but from our consultants to our staff and our legal is that the EIR did address the majority, if not all, of the major impacts, and most of them have been either mitigated or have been lessened.
If, regardless of if you mitigate it, you're changing it. This is what the zoning
says.
I know,
but that's
I'm just talking about consistency is all, Richard.
Well, that's why CEQA came into being in the first place. Those things couldn't be changed without looking at impacts.
I think that the reason we have a process to make changes is because it was never intended to be cast in stone.
Right. And it seems like that if that's the case, then each one is getting ruled on separately. And if the MAC says that this isn't what most of the people would like, then I would say that we haven't quite reached that point then.
Okay. Go ahead, Larry.
Well, I hate to reminisce. I think it's a lousy thing to do.
Go ahead and reminisce.
That's one of the prerogatives of getting old, I guess. You can do it once in a while. I was on this same commission when we did the original Granite Bay general plan back in, I guess it was the 80s.
So you're giving away your age.
Yeah. And I'll have to confess, at the time, we had no zoning. There was nothing out there. It was zero, and we started from scratch. And it was as agonizing then as it is today to decide what's the best to have out there. And at the time, we all, or at least enough of us, felt that the larger zoning was what we wanted. We wanted the agricultural aspect of the general plan, and that was what we ended up with. We worked at it pretty hard, and as you remember, we got the board to pass a right to farms rule, ordinance that we thought was going to allow a lot of this kind of property to stay in agriculture and be used for feeding the future of our families and so forth. And I think it was an honorable thing to do at the time. I think we really did a lot about graduating lot sizes out into the country and making it compatible with city life. And so now we're down to just the few pieces that didn't quite fit into the puzzle. You know, they got held out or development around them. And at the same time we're faced with that issue, we're also faced with an issue of incredible growth in this region, and the pressures of young people trying to find housing for themselves and their families within some region of their workplace. And I think now we've got to realize that this is not going to be an agricultural area that we envisioned in the beginning, and that's kind of sad for all of us. But there's just a lot of people in this world right now, particularly in this corridor between San Francisco and Reno. It's just incredible, the growth taking place. And we've seen the reaction by the people that, you know, we don't want any more growth, we don't want any more additions, we don't want more freeways, we don't want all that. We came here, we moved here for a purpose, and now we see that purpose fading away, and it no longer is it going to exist. I mean, you just... it's just impossible. And so now everybody, the raging story is, where are our young people and their families going to live and work? And I think it's a difficult issue. I sympathize with these people. They all, a large number of them, moved here, bought property with the aspect that they're going to be their utopia and it was going to be sacred forever. And I don't think any of us on this commission think that we want to destroy that attitude or that feeling. But there's still a lot of young people that have to have places to live and families. They have to grow. And there's, you know, you look at Sacramento and Roseville, that's where the jobs are. They're close by. And so they got to have a place to live. And I think it's difficult to, I guess, change our minds from what we thought we were going to do in the beginning to something less than that. But I think maybe this is the kind of development we're going to see. We're going to see a lot of it because there's a tremendous pressure for growth. I don't know where the people are coming from, whether they're coming from out of state or what, but there's just a lot of people moving into this region for their own reasons, and I just don't know how to combat it. It's a struggle, and I think if we're not careful, we're going to create ghettos. And I don't think we want to do that. I think we want to create something that everybody can afford, hopefully, in some way or not. So I'm leaning toward approving.
Thank you, Larry, for your 3 minutes. I'll let you go a little longer.
I'm hungry.
Well, I think the challenge for any development, I mean, trying to answer your question towards the end, is this is more of what we're going to see, is the cost, the sheer cost that each development is burdened with on obviously all the infrastructure issues. I think the only way the developments are going to move forward today are like this. They're going to have these kind of densities to be able to handle the load that the municipalities in the area are requiring them to carry. So that's my perspective, and unless there's any other comments, I will.
Well, I'll say one other comment. I think I agree with the people that the road system is stretched to the 11th degree, and I think the one thing that we as Californians in general are going to have to face up to is transportation issues. How are we going to move these people around? Right. And I don't have the answers, but I have the problem. And I see it on Interstate 80. I see it at Lake Tahoe where I live. You see it all around the county and everywhere. Transportation's a tough nut to crack, and I don't know. I don't have the answer, but I still have the problems.
Were you going to make?
Well, I'll go ahead and make the motion as well. Where we
Chairman Ricucci, could I put one thing into the record before the motion? I apologize.
No.
There is an errata sheet that I wanted to go over quickly with you.
Oh, yeah.
And it is starts with number 1 in the recommendations. It says attachment H. It should be attachment E. And then number 5, it should say what's underlined, only those lots that are 8,000 square feet or less within the project site. And then on perimeter lots that are deed restricted to 1 story should be stricken. That is with regard to the variance language. Also on number 5, which should be A, but is labeled C, so the lettering should be changed so that C is a A, and the findings go A through E. But also in the body, there is an addition that says, which will allow residences in the project on smaller lots to construct 1-story homes to reduce. And then 14 perimeter lots will be restricted to construct 1-story single-family homes to reduce. That should be stricken. And that's in your packet if you need to look at it a little bit more. Other than that, I'll go back to the recommendation.
I'd also like to remind the commission that every one of the actions that you'll be taking is a recommendation to the board, and I'd recommend you take each one of these items separately.
Okay, thank you. So I'd like to make a motion on 1 with the changes reflected in the errata sheet to certify the park at Granite Bay final environmental impact report, adopt mitigation monitoring and reporting program. Attachment D, supported by the incorporating by reference in its entirety the findings of fact in E, yes. Right?
Yes. Attachment E?
Attachment, it's actually attachment E, and the following statements. So we take that one?
Yes, that would be the following statements in the staff report.
Okay. So move. Is that?
Yeah, that's fine. Second.
Second.
Mm-hmm. Moved and seconded. Roll call.
Yes.
No.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Rakucci?
Yes.
Okay, number 2, adopt, I want to see, okay, there was no changes to 2, right, George?
No.
Okay. Adopt a resolution to amend the Granite Bay Community Plan to change the project site's land use designation from rural low-density residential to medium-density residential, supported by the following findings.
Findings in the staff report.
Staff report, okay, thank you.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call, please.
Mr. Curry is absent. Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
No.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Rakucci?
Yes.
Number 3, no changes on that one either. Okay, adopt an ordinance to rezone the project site from RS-8G Ag -B-40 residential single-family combined agriculture combined minimum building site of 40,000 square feet to RSB X 7,000 residential single-family combined minimum building site of 7,000 square feet and finding of the staff. Right. Okay.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Curry is absent. Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
No.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Rakucci?
Okay, 4, no changes in that one. Approve a vesting tentative subdivision map to create 56 lots and the following common lots. A 0.81 acres neighborhood park labeling A. The internal roadways labeled G to landscaping lots labeled C and B located along Sierra College frontage, and 2 lots to be used as water overland releases labeled D and E located between lots 7 and 8 and 49 and 50 respectively, and a lot for the detention basin F in the northwest corner of the site, subject to the condition of approval, attachment A, and supported by following findings and staff report found in the staff report. Okay.
Second.
Been moved and seconded. Roll call.
Mr. Curry is absent. Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
No.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Rakucci?
Yes.
Okay, we got some changes in 5. Let's see, all right.
That's correct.
Pardon?
There it's correct.
It's already corrected on that one, okay. Okay, because to 8,000, yeah, okay, it is changed. All right, approve a variance to allow increase in the maximum lot coverage, the area covered by the buildings and other structures currently allowed per single-story resident within the residential single-family zone district from 40% to 50% on only those lots that are 8,000 square feet or less within the project site.
And that would be subject to the findings in the staff report, subject to the conditions of approval, and subject to the revisions found in the errata.
So move.
Second.
Moving in second, roll call?
Mr. Curry is absent. Mr. Sevison?
Yes.
Mr. Gray?
No.
Mr. Moss?
Yes.
Mr. Johnson?
Yes.
Mr. Nader?
Yes.
Mr. Riccucci?
Yes. Okay, that.
I'd like to state for the record that these are recommendations only to the board. There are no appeal rights. This will be noticed for a public hearing at a future date at the board.
At the board. Thank you. Thank you all for attending. Meeting adjourned.